Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday night, and you know what that means? Well, no, you don't, because it's a very special Friday edition of Hey, did you see this one? What is up, everybody? Hello and welcome to the show. That's our new intro. I hope you liked it. It cuts off.
It seemed like it was playing twice the audio. That's weird. I was listening to it.
Oh, well.
We'll check it later.
We'll check it later.
Just
We'll
a
fix
note.
it. We'll fix it. I had 8,000 technical difficulties before getting on tonight, including something I'm noticing right now is you can see, I think you can see the recording at the top.
Yeah, you can.
I don't know what's going on. I fought with this stupid OBS program tonight for like a half hour before the show. But as you can see, it's Friday night. So we typically do shows on Wednesday. But I was sick all week. And unfortunately, we had to push till Friday. And then since I only started feeling better probably 4 to 6 hours ago, I had to do all the social media, check the OBS, make sure everything was good, corral the dudes, and then make sure that I could get this intro up and running. And I dropped the ball on most of it. So
It's okay. It's the first round of New Year.
It's
good.
the New Year.
We're good.
Yeah. So
this is the hangover episode.
Exactly. This is the New Year's hangover episode. If you're a fan of the show, you know that what'll happen is we'll have many episodes where we'll try new things. Some elements will stick, some elements will not. And this is one of those episodes where I tried too many new things all at the same time. One thing I know that's going to work is our outro screen that I didn't change at all. Still looks pristine. Still just says follow us on Instagram.
Pristine in quotation marks. Yeah.
Pristine. I totally stole it from the internet. It's a GIF that I stole. That will have to be updated at some point. But all of the new assets you've seen on our Instagram, on our Twitch, etc., on our TikTok, those were all created by Bleep Bloop Studios. My friend Jeffrey S. Robinson.
Nice. I know him.
Yeah, you know him, Kalen. He's done work for me before in the past for Blossom Buddies, and he made that great intro completely free. We paid him for we gave him a little bit of change for the actual assets, but he just came to me and he was like, "Yo, give me your theme for the show, and I'm going to put it against this cool homage to Saved by the Bell." And I think it turned out real cool. So we're gonna have some.
I didn't know that was gonna happen, and I watched it and was like, "What? It's
what?
moving! It's dancing!
It's dancing!
You're doing it, Peter!"
So we did it. We wanted a new year and a new look, and this is the under construction phase. I will work diligently to have the rest of the things updated for next week. That out of the way, welcome to John Carpenter Presents January
Part two.
We're not doing any sequels to last year because
much like Halloween Part 2, this whole month is set in a hospital because we're all fucking sick.
We're all sick. But they're not sequels like how we did in October. We did sequels.
He doesn't have a lot of sequels as a director, man. He has a couple, but Halloween 2, which we did in Halloween month, he is an uncredited director for that movie. So he was there and he was technically directing, but he was not credited as a director, but he kind of co-directed that movie.
But interestingly enough, to let the cat out of the bag a little bit,
Don't put that cat away.
The next 2 weeks are going to be the Snake Plissken movies. So we are actually doing one of his few sequels during.
Are you telling me that we're going to escape from New York and Los Angeles?
Los Angeles, from the Los Angeles fault.
Spoiler alert, one of those movies is good and the other one isn't good.
Who would have thought two...
I don't think that's the case.
Who would have thought
I think it is.
Well, let's leave
I feel like they're both the same
Let's
level
leave our
of...
reviews for those times, but who would have thought that two peninsula-like landmasses would be split off from the country within a few years of one another? I haven't seen the movies. I don't know if
what would be a great return would be return to LA or return to New York, and it's like old man Kurt Russell just back with the eye patch. John Carpenter gets out of his old cigar stunk chair, puts the weed down and the 2K sports down, and directs again, pulls his synthesizer out.
Well, he still makes music, so the music's probably got a soundtrack for it.
I think we talk about this as well during Halloween month, but like every tune from the like last decade for Halloween movies, he's been at the keyboard like ding 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 ding, ding scoring that shit.
They made Escape from Little Tokyo, but it was set in Tokyo,
and also Michael Myers is in it.
And also Michael Myers is in it. And
him and Lopan team up.
Snake.
Can I get a sidebar?
What's up?
Is there a game that appears on the cup of your Game Boy with like hot water?
Yes. I believe it's Mario.
Snake
it's Mario
versus Big Trouble in Little China versus Mike Myers in a free-for-all in the streets of Tokyo. And they go,
I don't know if I've talked about this before.
They go kaiju size.
I always thought it'd be fun if, you know, that like movie that came out a couple of years ago, the Kurt Russell Christmas Santa Claus movie where he plays Santa Claus. I always thought it'd be funny if his character from Big Trouble in Little China ran over Tim Allen and then he became the new Santa Claus.
And you take on the thing. Yeah. That's funny.
Anyway.
Hey,
perhaps we should talk about this movie.
So before we get into the movie, just before somebody actually joined from Mastodon. So I've been, since Twitter's like on fire, I've been trying to find new homes. I know Mastodon's not the best, but I still post our shit on it every week. And we have a follower who just came in from Mastodon. So fucking welcome to the show. We're talking about Starman, and it's John Carpenter month. And I'm your host this week, Jason, and I'm joined as always with Steven and with Kaylin. And for Steven and Kaylin, I'm Jason.
Hey, did you see this one? Let's get out of here.
This one. Bye.
Movie was good. Bye.
Movie good. Bye. Movie was fine. Bye. Nope.
You know, this is one of his like highly regarded films.
I know that to be true because I believe it had an Oscar nom or was an Oscar like talks.
I think it was nom. It
was nominated.
I think Jeff got it.
When you view it through that lens, it is kind of Oscar bait, and it is kind of a Michael-y. Remember the movie Michael starring John Carpenter? It's kind of like that. Which I believe was also nominated for an Oscar. I could be wrong. Sorry, what were you going to say, Cage?
I was going to say, so Jeff got the nom, but his performance, I'm reminded of the line from Tropic Thunder, I believe.
Oh no! Yeah, hopefully it's not a problematic line.
It is a problematic line.
For who?
Do not say the R word. I feel like you're gonna say the R word.
No, I'm not gonna say the R word.
Oh, you never go full.
But you just don't go full.
Yeah.
So that is the line you're thinking of?
Yeah.
And you think he went full?
He's an alien, man. He doesn't know how to he doesn't know what to do with his body.
No, yeah. And I like so don't get me wrong. I love the fact that he approached it from that like perspective. Like this alien thing doesn't know how to use this body or whatever, right? But like I feel like there should have been growth over time where instead of just doing this bird twitchy thing the whole time, like he kind of slowly gets better at it.
But he didn't been. It's only like the movie only takes place over the course of like 3 days.
I would venture to say that he does.
He became a baby to a full-grown man in seconds.
I would venture to say that he actually does get a little bit better towards the end of the movie. And when he's dishing out lines, when he says his little catchphrases as he learns them, he says those like pretty perfectly.
Also, I know somebody in real life who walks the way that he walks, and the person I'm talking about. Just a regular guy. It's just he walks weird, and like Jason when he walks around walks like he's wearing scuba flippers.
I thought it was a good portrayal as an alien, because we've never seen one.
It's goofy for sure, but it's not like he's not going into some realm of like offensiveness.
Before we get into more of that though, let's talk about our first experiences. I'll go first. You guys mentioned this movie a couple times in the chat. in our personal chat, and we were talking about doing another John Carpenter month because eventually we're going to run out of movies. So we're trying to do the obscure ones, or so I thought. But if this is
this is I wouldn't ones, I mean is as highly regarded as it is, not a lot of people have seen this movie. It's not a movie that you're like sitting down at a bar with a buddy and being like, let's talk about Starman for fucking 3 hours.
So then on top of that, I watched it. I was going to watch it on Wednesday but I was 11 out of 9, 11 out of 10.
You were I was going to say drunk. You were sick.
I was sick. Not COVID, just a regular flu for the first time in 3 years. So it was like just kicked my ass. So I couldn't watch a movie.
Now I have it. I'm drinking a cup of chicken broth right now.
Well,
hey, did you get that from me?
Gotta get the nutrients into you.
What, chicken broth?
Yeah, drinking chicken broth. You get that?
That's something that my dad used to do when I was a kid.
Man, that's
this cup of broth.
Isn't that your hangover cure? Yeah, we've talked about that in the past. That's Steve's hangover cure typically.
Yeah, or like a hearty chicken noodle soup with like vegetables and chunks of chicken in it. But this is just like straight broth.
That good shit.
There you go. There you go, listeners. If you need a good hangover cure / sickness cure, just get down on that.
Quick sidebar. How long before the noodles suck up all the soup? How long does soup last for you guys? Am I making soup wrong?
I don't know. I don't even really understand your question.
I just eat the soup as soon as it's cool.
I don't know because I never let it sit long enough. I guess that the noodles turn into
leftover
dust.
Soup?
You know what? There's never leftover soup, but I will say I have seen noodles get left. This is the stupidest sidebar. I have seen noodles get left like when I was living with a bunch of bachelors with roommates. I have seen a bowl of soup congeal into a horrible nightmare. I would say like 6 hours before like it's just the noodles.
Yeah, you want to get rid of that soup unless it's like a stew or like, you know, not a really hearty soup
or like a homemade soup.
You don't want to leave it for too long.
We're on the rails.
So
okay,
you keep it on like minimum, keep it hot. Basically.
Rails.
Yeah, this.
Okay, my bad. Yeah.
Rails.
They don't even eat soup in this movie.
It's Friday night. We're wiling out. This is the thing. On Wednesday night, it's much easier to keep everybody in line. But the irony here is we're all sober.
I'm sober.
We're all sober.
This is water.
This is chicken broth.
This is beer, but I haven't taken a sip yet. Anyway, I watched it today, and it was an enjoyable watch. So I think we're gonna have a good time talking about it. But it's another one where it's not content dense in that it's more like things just happen one after another, which is kind of probably how we're going to.
It's a typical road trip movie.
It's like a road trip rom-com sci-fi, almost with elements of superhero. So I'll pass it over to Steve. Why don't you tell us?
Hi, it's me, Steve. Hey, did you see this one?
You were the person that actually recommended this.
Well, the reason I suggested this movie is because the other 3 movies we're watching are all. It's going to be a lot of action. So I was like, let me pick something that's like really against the grain. Even though there's a little bit of action in this movie, it's you would never consider it an action movie. The first
explosion. Jason called it.
There are some massive explosions in this movie, like to the point that you're like, holy shit, they blew up a whole forest. But I saw this movie. I don't know. I think I saw it when I was a teenager, but it was one of those ones where I didn't really like it when I was young, and I didn't even really want to suggest it for this because I think he's got some other bangers we could have done or some under discussed movies. But this one's not really over discussed. If you look for like review content on the internet, there's not a ton of it. So I was like, you know what? Let's do Starman. I haven't seen it since I was a teen, and I watched it on Tuesday, and I fell asleep within 10 minutes, and I woke up and the credits were playing, and I was like, ah, dang,
that's not a good sign.
Yeah, I'm like, is this movie really boring? But I was just really tired. But I watched it yesterday, and I would consider that my first like true viewing, I think, because the memories I have of watching it the first time are almost non-existent, and I think it's because not a whole bunch happens in the movie, and it takes place over such a short time period that like you get little blips of it, but I think yesterday I would consider it to be my first viewing, and I'll pass it on to Kaylin.
Well, just before we get to Kaylin, it's a very It's a very unapologetically 80s movie. Like, it's pacing, it's color gradients, it's evil.
Yeah, I love the colors.
I love. I'm not saying it's bad or I dislike it.
It's
but
very John Carpenter though. Like he has a
True.
very distinct visual style in this movie. Is
Aesthetic.
swimming in it, you know.
So last night I watched Event Horizon because I was all whacked on cold meds and I was like, that sounds like one of those movies you want to watch high. I'll try it this way. I had a blast, man. Watch
that movie is pretty
wacky. Event Horizon, but watch it when you're all sick and on cold medication because that was an experience. I should have watched Starman.
If I don't have a cold,
I should have watched Starman last night, but I wouldn't have been able to take notes because I was too colded out.
I was planning on watching it again today and taking notes, and then I slept for 7 hours in the middle of the day.
So yeah, just to finish my thought, it is very unapologetically 80s. So I could see going into this and being tired and just like waking up at the credits.
As a side note to what you were saying, I have been toying with what my theme is going to be when, as you guys know, viewers, we on our months that we're born within, we select a theme and we pick all the movies for the month. And Event Horizon is up there. It's on my list of what themes I'm thinking. Isolation movies, like movies where people are isolated from all of humanity and they have to survive or overcome some sort of turmoil. And Event Horizon is on the list, so hopefully we'll discuss it.
Excellent, because I do want to
nauseam in the future.
All right, cool. I look forward to that for sure. Kaylin, why don't you tell us all about your first time with this movie?
My first time was Tuesday night in preparation for Wednesday. I actually had not heard or seen this movie before. And
imagine you had just heard it, like you'd only heard the audio of this movie, not the visual.
You downloaded a version that has no video, and since you didn't know anything about it, you were like,
"No, it's the audio of Starman."
It's a movie. You go to the theaters, but it's just audio the whole time with one 5-minute sequence right at the end. It's unlike anything anybody's ever done before, and the sequel actually has no visuals in it at all. Like, no, you just got.
I told you what happened with me in Parasite, right?
That's what it happened with me in District 9. So anyway, we've told both of those stories. Kaylin, go on.
Yeah, tangents, sidebars, they're all part of the fun. So Tuesday was my first day or whatever, first viewing. I'm always a fan of discovering something new. And then I watched it again last night just to get like a refresher for today. And it was enjoyable enough. I think I'm gonna be the like sometimes it's like one person is kind of like the anyway.
I don't know.
We'll the kryptonite of the group.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see because are you done? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, yeah, that's it.
I didn't want to protest too much, but I think that I don't know if this movie is. I think it's good, but I don't think it's John Carpenter's best work, especially compared to crazy gonzo wackadoo movies like Big Trouble in Little China and They Live.
Let me say this. So the idea for the movie, like the movie itself was fine and the idea is fine. I think this story might have been better in someone else's hands, and I don't want to say that to insult John Carpenter in any way whatsoever, but he has like a certain like style and aesthetic that I find works best for a certain kind of movie, like the ones you've mentioned. And also those movies at the time, I guess, didn't really have much of an impact, but their ripple through time has lasted longer. Where this one was like a complete switch up, and Steven, like you said, like it got nominated and stuff, and like at the time it was heralded or whatever, but it kind of fizzled. I never heard of it. Like I don't like you said, like people don't kind of bring it up in conversation.
Well, it's because people don't hang a Starman poster in their dorm room, but you'll see a million Big Trouble in Little China or Halloween posters in a dorm room, I think you're right. It's like you think about somebody like Guillermo del Toro, right? Like every time he makes a movie, I'm so excited to watch it. And most of the time I'm like, that was great. But every once in a while, there's a movie that I'm like, just give me another haunted fairy tale, would you? Like, I don't need to see this weird shit.
It
Come
really
on, Del
is.
Toro.
This one is sort of it's almost an attempt at doing what early superhero movies did, where they shoehorn in a romance just because like it puts asses in seats. This one almost
I actually
felt.
thought this was Lois Lane for a second. Crazy me.
This almost feels like
No, it's Indiana Jones.
It's Indiana Jones'
yeah, I know,
girlfriend.
Big dumb idiot.
But it's also it felt like an attempt at like making a sci-fi movie with they kind of swerved us. I thought there was going to be more body horror because it is John Carpenter, and then it's more about an alien and a woman falling in love kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this
more action than me.
I wouldn't call this a shoehorned love story. I think
No.
movie is a
I mean an attempt at getting more people in to watch a sci-fi. So they focus on the love story. It's like not.
Yeah, I could see them making like a really intense trailer.
Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie is very Mary Jane and Peter Parker centric. It's the one. It's like the B plot to him becoming Spider-Man. This obviously the A plot is their. Actually, the A plot is him fucking coming to Earth and trying to get home, and then the B plot is them rekindling this thing.
I don't think there's an A and B plot in this movie. I think there's a plot.
Just a plot.
There's just a plot. Yeah, he needs to get to a crater, and she needs to get him there, but they fall in love along the way.
I watch too much TV, so everything has an A and a B plot.
Yeah, no, there's literally two characters. The B plot would be the scientist. Trying to smoke his cigar.
Yeah,
and we're like, will he ever get to smoke his
cigar? He really likes those cigars.
No, we don't know that because he almost gets to smoke it 1,000,000 times, and he never smokes it until the final.
Oh, is that what's happening? I thought he was smoking it every time.
No, he's about to light it, and he keeps getting interrupted, so you never see him light it.
Now I love it so much more at the end. That's amazing.
When he blows the smoke in the like Admiral's face or whatever, that's the first time he finally gets to smoke his cigar.
Exactly. That's awesome.
Steven,
I didn't realize that.
We got a question in the chat. This never happened, so I'm just gonna let it. I'm just gonna new us.
Yo, this is a wild episode.
I'm letting it happen. It's Friday night. Yeah. What does Steven have around his neck?
A vest?
It's a scarf
from Keldon.
It's a scarf. I'm cold. I'm sick. I have a cold.
But you don't have it tied up.
There, now I do.
That
looks weird.
Now your neck is protected from the cold and the elements.
No, I was wearing it earlier and I just left it on. So when I'm sick, I get like weird chills, and covering your neck holes makes you warm.
So a hood.
But yeah, no,
I got flannel.
While I was watching the movie the whole time, I was like, when's he gonna light it? When's he gonna light it? When's he gonna light it? I'm like, something's gonna happen, and it's gonna be so satisfying when he finally lights it. And it is. It's like the moment of satisfaction is him being satisfied, and he gets to light it, and he has it in his mouth, and he's like,
and the line?
I'm a scientist.
He says something like, I don't mean to be symbolic or something like that.
Yeah, and then he blows the smoke in his face.
I like through the whole movie though. He like obviously he's gonna help out Starman. But he's still working. He's technically
no movie title shout out.
No movie title shout out. He is working with the government, so like it's just like what's gonna finally make him do it. And the thing that finally makes him so pissed off that he's like, fuck these guys, I'm going to go just help Starman, is the general takes the cigar out of his mouth and breaks it. Get that cigar out of here. And I thought that was a great little.
So you're going to be bagging groceries at Kmart, you motherfucker, but I'm done with you. I like that character. At first I hated him because if there's one thing I cannot stand in life is people sucking on their fingers when they're eating food. Like it makes me like want to barf when I hear the sound and I see it happening. I'm like, I don't know what you've been doing with those fucking fingers. Did you wash your hands before you're eating, or are you just sucking on your nasty fingers?
Eating wings and sauces all day. Like,
oh my god, it's disgusting.
You're gonna hate me.
I already hate you.
And it's not because you suck on your fingers. It's because you got too
because
drunk.
I find you generally unpleasant as a person. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. No, it's in the moment that he's introduced, he's got like sauce dripping down his elbow, and he's sucking on his fingers, and he's watching. I think he's watching basketball, or is he watching football? I can't remember. He's watching a sport game. Yeah.
Sports bowl.
he's watching some sort of sports ball game competition, and he's got his fingers halfway down his throat, and the government fucking calls, and he's like, "Call me back in 20 minutes, which I gotta suck on these fingers and watch this b-ball get sunk." And,
Sinking balls and drinking.
And I hated him. I was
draws.
like, this character will never be redeemable to me. He's doing two things that I don't care for: watching sports and sucking on his fucking fingers. But by the end, I was like, this guy is a little cutie sweetheart. I love him, and all he wants is to meet an alien and be friends with an alien. And you know what? He kind of does that in the end. So his
you get a little goodbye kiss.
Yeah,
that was awesome. I called
his
I said it out loud.
His story arc is like perfect, and he gets his sort of satisfying ending. You don't really need to see any more from him after the last time you see him because everything's been resolved. Yeah. I had a point to this and I can't remember what it was, so I'll let you guys take over here.
Oh, fingers, sucking on fingers.
No, I think I made it pretty clear that I hate it.
Yeah, exactly. Was that part of the point, though? Was that part of the point?
No, I just wanted to let everybody out there on the internet know how much I hate people sucking on their fingers
while they're eating, and just in general. I noticed this movie had a lot of setups. And
how many napkins do you use?
I was talking.
I don't eat with my hands.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, that was it. It's like, because if you're not sucking the sauce off your fingers, then you're using a napkin, I assume.
That's like saying how much toilet paper do you use? Enough to get rid of everything.
Oh, that's going to be his next question. And how do you scrunch or do you fold it?
Exactly.
We're not talking about
fucking
that.
Guy for a decade.
It's. I don't get sauce on my hands because I don't eat with my hands for the most part. And if I'm eating something like a burger or something, I usually don't
keep it in the wrapper.
I ask them to give me the sauce so I can put it on it. And I put enough on it that
burger
it's not gonna
sauce.
Yeah, and I ask them to keep it on the side, and I will put the sauce on it myself. So I put enough on so I don't get shit all over my fingers. So I don't have to be like.
That sounds pretty good.
I live in a ditch. Anyway, sorry. I'm gonna keep ranting about this unless you stop me.
Charles Martin Smith. Shout out to Charles Martin Smith as Mark Sherman, the scientist guy or FDA or whatever he was.
Yeah, still acting today.
He stole the show for me personally. He stole the show for me.
Yeah, I didn't expect to get invested in him after like I said. Oh, that was the point I wanted to make, is that they set him up in a way that perfectly to me made him vile and irredeemable, and he like within maybe halfway through the movie, I'm like, I'm more invested in this guy than I am in the other, because I know they're going to get to the end, whether they die or succeed and he gets away. Like I know they're going to get to their goal, but is this little scientist man going to get to like help them in the way that he wants to? Right. And he does, and it's good. That was the point I was trying to make, is that like they succeeded in making me not like him just by having him be like, hey, I'm the guy in Independence Day who hears the beeping and I tell everybody about it. But am I going to be a main character? No, you're going to forget about me as you leave the theater. And I thought he was just going to be one of those, like first contact scientist who gets like brushed aside pretty quickly. Yeah. But no, he's a main character. Him and his pilot, the helicopter pilot, whose name I can't remember, but he had a lot of weight on his shoulders.
Sergeant Lemon, maybe.
Tony Everts. I don't remember what his character name was, but like for the majority of the movie, it's like the scientist being like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Where are they going? We gotta help them."
Hey, I'm showing up, like,
"Excuse me, sir, you've got a call." Yeah, he's right here. Let me get him on the horn, and like he's just always there to like move the plot along. And speaking of like side characters, did you guys recognize our old friend Buck Flower? When I saw the credits, I was like, Buck Flower, who is he? And he's the guy who Jeff Bridges hitchhikes with, like near the end.
Okay, yeah.
But he was the guy in They Live, the guy who was like the homeless man who becomes like super rich and affluent because he like sells out to the aliens.
Yeah.
The guy who's like, "You boys finally gave in, huh? We got to make sure that we, bow to our alien overlords."
Oh yes. When he like kind of welcomes them into that like end of that ball or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like you see him at the beginning of the movie, and he's like watching TV outside, which is like if you're watching a television with no roof over your head, there's problems in your life. But like this guy,
priorities.
And then you see him later, and he's super wealthy. Yeah, he was in the movie for a little bit, and he has like kind of a good little character, He's like, "Listen to me. What are you, some sort of Starman? Here's a cigarette. Don't you hate your wife like I do? Pain in my butt." But
I'd
yeah,
also like
maybe
to give a shout out to topping up a half full wine glass.
yeah. When I saw her do that, I was like, I've done that. Where it's like there's clearly enough wine in that glass for you to drink the wine and be done, but you're just like, I'm gonna drink more, so I might as well fill it. We should probably go through the plot a little bit, right? As little as there is that happens in this movie, like you were saying, Jason, it is a road trip movie. While I was watching it, I was like, this is like a combination of E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, except
I had a different combination. I'll tell you my combination next.
Those two movies are like masterpieces, right? If you watch E.T. at the end, you're like crying and you're like, what a beautiful, perfect movie. You watch Close Encounters, same feeling, but this movie is like, it's in the same vein as those two, and it feels like a pretty decent combination of those two movies, except it's geared pretty much for adults. Like, this isn't a movie you would show a kid. A kid would be bored out of their fucking mind watching this, and there's some weird sex scenes in it that you're like, ugh.
So check this out. Check out this combination. So I wrote down echoes of E.T. and Meet Joe Black. Right?
No.
What do you mean, no?
Meet Joe Black is not a fucking road trip movie. It is. It is a road trip movie. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
The stranger in a human's body trying to like figure out feelings and stuff like that part.
Okay, fine.
And then also the weird sex and shit. That was weird.
Right. So the reason I put Close Encounters in my combo is because Close Encounters is also a road trip movie, right? It's like those two people.
Are they like close to where it happens?
No, they have to go cross country. The majority of the movie is them traveling across the country to get to the mashed potato mountain or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's a movie we should probably do on this podcast at some point. We should do a Spielberg, because Spielberg has so many movies. We should like maybe distill it down to like a specific genre or something. But yeah, Meet Joe Black, fine. What I'm saying is like aliens, road trip movie. That's a fun combo, and in Close
adult
Encounters,
E.T. basically. Let's call it adult E.T.
Adult E.T. Yeah, I mean Close Encounters is pretty adult. Like I watched it as a kid, but again, I would rather watch E.T. as a kid than Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But now I think I'd rather watch Close Encounters because I think it's more interesting, because I think I identify more with the main character now than I did when I was a kid, right? Whereas E.T. is like told through the eyes of Elliot. Richard Dreyfuss's character is sort of the vehicle, the catalyst for the audience in that movie.
Let's watch Jaws again. I just want to watch his performance.
That was my first episode on this show. Remember when I showed up just to make a joke and then I never left?
What was the first joke?
I don't know. I think Jason wanted me to come in and talk about how Toronto like street slang language is like weird, and I came in and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I do love Jaws. Let's talk about Jaws. Do you guys want to go through the plot a little bit?
Jason, what's good on your end?
I was thinking this movie's kind of like I mentioned Michael, like that's a fallen angel thing. You guys remember K-Pax?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Remember K-Pax? Obviously, we're not going to get into that because of
Jeff Bridges. Hey.
Nope.
K-Pax was in. No, Jeff Bridges was in K-Pax.
He was in it. Was he like?
Yeah, he was the doctor
or whatever. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but also, you guys left out a huge one that this movie sort of completely reminded me of.
No, he's gonna say some fucking bullshit Marvel movie. I bet.
I'm not. I'm gonna.
The only movies you watch.
Go ahead.
Sorry?
No, what movie?
No, yeah, tell us.
Powder.
We both did our combo. What's your combo?
Powder.
Ooh.
This is literally a Powder story.
You picked K-Pax and Powder? K-Powder?
I didn't say they were a combination of these. I wasn't trying to make a combination. I was trying to think of other movies that sort of have that's why like I couldn't stop thinking of Michael,
like sort of thing. Yeah, like a person from another world.
Because Michael's very similar, where he comes from heaven, right? And he falls in love with Minnie Driver. Or I think it's.
I've never seen Michael, and I probably never will.
It's one of those dumb movies. It's one of those dumb movies that like I would rent with my mom, and we would have like movie night, and there's nothing at fucking Blockbuster. You guys just want to watch Michael again? It's like, oh, fine, I guess so. We used to watch a lot of bullshit like that when I was a kid.
Right.
But I kept thinking of his like superpower shit that he could do. Reminds me of in Powder. Also, kind of like the Green Mile a little bit too, you know. otherworldly people.
Yeah, he's a magic man.
He's a magic man.
He's impressive to human beings.
I like when he encounters the hunter and brings the deer back to life. The hunter doesn't go, holy shit, this guy brought a dead animal back to life. Maybe I should leave him alone. Instead, he punches him so hard he flips backwards over.
He does a backflip. He uppercuts him like a Mortal Kombat character. It's crazy. I don't think I think the only person that saw the deer come back to life was Karen Allen's character,
Jenny,
and like no one else in the entire establishment saw that. So I think that hunter just thought that the guy took the deer and like hucked it in like a ditch or something nearby.
Yeah, he just whipped it.
Yeah.
I will say, Kaylin, you just mentioned saying Jenny. He does say Jenny, not the Tropic Thunder you said earlier thing he said. He does say Jenny, much like Forrest Gump says Jenny several times. And now that I think about it, it does have a little bit of that, like, maybe he was drawing from like bird head tilt.
Well, I've read that he got inspiration from birds for like the movements for sure.
Yeah, it's sort of like a curiosity thing, right? Like imagine, like, you know, when you like take mushrooms or something and everything around you feels like you're seeing it for the first time and you like are almost like transported to the mind of a child. I think that's what his like whole deal was with this, right? It's like, imagine you are seeing everything on this planet for the first time ever. Like a tree would be amazing to you.
And then on top of that,
rope would be amazing to you.
Everything would be amazing. Feelings and emotions from like the body he's inhabiting. So like,
oh yeah, true, yeah.
Also, The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie, and there's an Indian movie apparently called PK, which I feel like I've heard of, with Amir Khan.
I don't know if I'm familiar.
PK.
Let's go through the plot a little bit, and we'll just like talk through it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, the movie opens with a satellite. I can't remember what the name of the satellite was, but it's like a pod of information that humanity sent out in the late 60s, early 70s.
That's a real thing, actually. It's it's on the Voyager, I believe.
Voyager 1, Voyager 2, yeah, exactly. And also the golden disc, they use that in Beast Wars.
Oh, nice. You can buy that. You can buy my friends actually have a framed
copy of it, yeah.
Print of it.
Or
you could take the record out and listen to fucking Rolling Stones or whatever.
Back when people really cared about space exploration and
not like how do we monetize the moon and Mars?
Yeah, before billionaires became politicians and shit, humanity actually cared about like the heavenly bodies above and how we can explore and whether or not there's stuff out there. How about we send out a little, hey, how's it going from Earth to the universe, and maybe somebody will find it one day, which is a very cool and romantic sentiment on its own right. And this movie proposes the idea of what if an intelligent species did find this and decided to send down a Starman to investigate further.
Now it's more like what happens in Arrival, where if any of that shit went down, the countries would fight over who got to have the first encounter first and go to war over it.
Yeah, I think like that probably still would have been the case back then, but the populace at large, when they looked up, were like, can you imagine? Whereas now people look up and they're like, oh, why is our country burning? Why do I live in this stupid country? Why isn't there gun reform? But yeah, the movie proposes what if a Starman found it and came down. The movie also it basically makes it clear that this is not the first time that they've come to Earth, but it does sort of infer that it's the first time that since they've realized, oh, humanity is now sending out invites, so let's go down. And of course they get the invitation, and instead of being able to just land peacefully, human beings are like, what the fuck is that? Shoot it. And
it's not clear what these aliens even look like besides maybe being just
it's a big ball of light, isn't it?
I assumed that they were just like pure energy.
Yeah,
and like the energy is able to like manifest a physical form as long as it's able to find some sort of DNA to cling on to, which is like interesting because you're like, what if he didn't find the hair of a dead man? What if he like only found like a crocodile or something? Would he turn into a crocodile? You're like,
yo, remember that show?
Let's get to Arizona.
/show.
What?
Animorphs.
Yeah.
Yes, the the successful young adult novels from the 90s where you would flip the pages and in the corner would be a person turning into like a dove or some shit.
Which rivaled Goosebumps, if you
I
remember.
don't know. I honestly don't think it was a rivalry. I think they were like holding hands together, taking over the young adult novel.
No,
like, I think it was owned by the same people.
They were, but in my schoolyard, it was like, do you like Goosebumps or do you like Animorphs?
Oh yeah, when
And
you're
I
a
was
kid
like,
and you're only allowed to like
motherfucker.
one thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I can't like both.
No.
No, you have to like one or the other, or you're
No.
a pervert.
You're a pervert. If you like anything, if you like Coke and Pepsi, you better get out of here.
Yeah,
or
if
I'm
you like
calling
Star
Chris
Trek
Hansen.
and if
Imagine
you like
at
Star
the
Trek
same
and
time,
Star Wars,
like a Coke Pepsi.
That would never happen. I think
No,
Coke
I
and
don't think
Pepsi.
that's
it would
ever
create
happened. I'm
a
gonna
it would
try
create a
that.
black hole in the world. The entire universe would be swallowed up. If
I
you
think
did
I think the Coke and Pepsi thing is to this day one of those things that you're just universally not allowed to like both.
It's like Pac and Biggie.
I think you
No.
can. I think you can
that.
like.
Are we gonna
Biggie
make
now.
comparisons forever, or are we gonna?
No, yeah.
It was really cool when they zoomed in on the strand of hair, though. That I
That
thought
was sick.
really
Yeah,
cool.
that was probably the most impressive and cool thing in the entire movie was that like flash, and it kept getting closer and closer because you could tell that was like a weird practical prop
Yeah.
that they like had a camera kind of pushing in on.
I'll let
And-
you guys in on a little thing that I have with movies that is kind of a detriment to myself. When I've only seen a movie once, the first 5 or 10 minutes of every single movie I only watch for the first time, I don't know what's going on. So I don't pick. I'm not linking what that's going to mean later until later when somebody hopefully mentions it. So this hair thing, when they mentioned it later, I was like, huh? So I went back and saw it. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm always just, the same thing happens in video games. I'm in the game for the first time, it's like I'm trying to figure out how to play the movie in my head and trying to make sense of all of it. And when it starts to come together, that's when the movie sort of like that's my memory point starts. So
You're like, oh, he's a star man.
Well, the memory point starts for this movie in my head when there's a baby on the ground with a glowing head. Yeah. And then that's where the story kind of starts.
Kicks forward, yeah.
Before that, it's just kind of like little things are happening and I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
but if I watched this movie twice, then I would be like, oh, that's how that first 5 minutes relates to the rest of the movie. So my apologies. I
recommend it.
I think what me and Kaylin I think are trying to say is like it's a super impressive practical effect, which John Carpenter is pretty well known for having really cool practical effects. Yeah. And it's just like a weird thing, right? It's a little ring of hair in a memory photo album thing, like of her husband, right? And she has like a bunch of his hair in a ring, which I find kind of weird, but whatever. Some people used to do that. Save hair.
I definitely had so remember in the like early 90s and the late 80s, well, probably from the 70s, but picture albums, you didn't just slide them in. It was like a piece of plastic that you open with
kind of
like
stuck
sticky.
A little bit.
Yeah. My mom had one of those with a curl of my fucking baby hair in it. For like
from your first haircut or some shit.
Yeah.
It's so weird. The satellite comes down, he gets shot down, and he finds this little hut, and Karen Allen is introduced, and she's watching videos of her husband, who it's pretty clear she's sad, and you're like, he either left her or he's dead.
He died, and it was recent because that's when Kaylin mentioned the topping up a half full glass of wine.
Yeah,
and she's like she's all shaky.
Yeah, she's getting drunk and watching memories, and she's like, why the fuck am I doing this to myself? I'm gonna go to bed. And then the ball of light arrives and scans this photo album, basically finds a picture of Jeff Bridges and his goofy face, no, and it brings up like a hologram, brings up a hologram head, and then it goes to the hair, and it does this push in on the hair, and then it zooms like a snap zoom to even closer, and then even closer, and it's like these they must have built these like super huge practical hair follicles with little crusts in it, and it goes even closer and it gets bigger, and the further in it goes, the more impressive it becomes, until it turns into this sort of like molecular storm of the DNA within the hair, and he's basically scanning it. And like if you've seen any kind of science fiction-y movies, you sort of get what's happening. You're like, oh, he's gonna become a Starman from this hair. And she then wakes up and finds a glowing baby in her living room, and it's very very quickly turning into like a little kid, and then sort of like a 12-year-old, and then morphs like a really gross sort of like practical morphing of it into like a Jeff Bridges head.
It had a cool
Make it
practical effect morph from baby to like kid from behind.
Yeah, it was like a dummy that
Right?
was like stretching. It was like some The Thing style shit.
But when
you
they
know?
showed the head and it was like a weird like claymation or something, or like
Yeah.
probably some sort of practical head that they like tried to inflate, it just looked
It didn't
bad.
work
Even
out.
for John Carpenter. Like John Carpenter has some like questionable special effects sometimes, but this is probably the worst one I've like ever seen. Maybe.
I don't know if it's the worst thing I've ever seen, but it definitely had some Adventures of Mark Twain vibes going on
Yeah.
there. Like, ugh. But you know, even something like The Thing, which has some people would argue the best practical effects that have ever existed on camera. The end of that movie has like a big claymation stop frame animation puppet that compared to the rest of the movie looks pretty bad. If you watch it even now, it's like a perfect movie in all its own right. But at the end, everybody forgets there's like a big fucking stop motion puppet that Kurt Russell throws the dynamite at. And it sucks. Like it sucks compared to everything else you've seen up to that point in the movie. And I think what Jason's saying is that the effect on Jeff Bridges' head going it looks bad. It
And
definitely does not look great.
Those bad special effects are amplified when you watch movies in HD, and that's something I know. I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to keep talking about Event Horizon.
I think
but
if anything we can say
the
like a pioneer,
CGI,
right?
the CGI in mid '90s movies. This goes for pretty much every. This took me out of Fifth Element really badly because the CGI in that was groundbreaking for the time. But when you watch those movies that were kind of meant to be watched either on a theater screen, which back then were standard definition, or on a fucking 32-inch CRT, right?
Standard definition. No, it's a projector of film. Film is like,
which is like its own whatever. It's film. Anyway, my point is that stuff kind of melds into the movie, but when they remaster it, it kind of separates like the CGI from the movie itself. And that kind of happens.
Sticks out, yeah.
Well, that kind of happens with these old practical effects. When they're bad, they stick out a lot more because you can see all the the problems. They stick out a lot more.
The good thing is though, if it's a good movie, you don't really.
That's
care.
true, and this movie has no CGI in it, like zero.
Yeah.
So
it has like rear projection and a little bit of like rotoscoping, and here and there you can tell when there's a fake background, like when they're in the car and he projects that map. Yeah, it's like they're in a car, cuts to the profile of the both of them, cuts back, and you can tell that the outside of the car is like a green screen basically, because you can see that like line around them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. But with everything you said, Jason, the only thing that I would add is like, again, if you're watching a good movie, you forget about that stuff until you start talking it in depth like we are right now, right? Like by the end of the movie, you're like, that was good. And you're not thinking, that was good except for that one fucking weird clay head.
No, I know, but I agree with you. But I'm telling you, like, my own tastes, the 90s CGI really takes me out of it. And it sucks. And
yeah, that's unfortunate for you.
It's only because... No, I know it's hilarious, whatever. But, like, it's a real thing for a lot of people, and the problem is like, I almost want them to, like,
make a new one?
Demake movies back to, like, put a little bit of a grain on it. Don't try to make everything so shiny.
Super crisp.
So that CGI... Like, I remember watching these movies when I was a kid, and watching CGI now, which is going to be updated to, like, 8K someday... The CGI that we think is groundbreaking now is going to look like shit one day. It's just a cycle that's always going to happen. And I'm just saying, man.
Well, I mean, what I'm going to counter that with is, have you watched Jurassic Park recently? Because it still fucking looks sick. Like,
yeah, but
he knows exactly where and when to use CG and how to hide those seams. And it's like, it's all about whose hands it's in, right?
That's
somebody like George Lucas is like, butt fucking the camera with CGI to death, and then Steven Spielberg is like, I'm gonna add rain and mud and muck, and you're not gonna really be able to tell. And then when you do the stuff where it is noticeable, I'm gonna have a giant rubber monster, and it's gonna look real. And like, it all depends on who's making the movie, right?
Well, I mean, Steven Spielberg had his fingers all over Ready Player One, and that thing's gonna look like a piece of shit in 10 years.
I'm using Jurassic Park specifically as an example because
that movie is like one of the best like best made movies of all time, though. I don't think that really.
Yeah, but it's also one of the first
right
movies that utilized CGI to the degree that it did, and it still looks amazing because he knew that like people are going to notice and it's going to take them out, so I'm going to find a way to hide it, and he did. And now he's like, I'm going to make Ready Player One where 99% of the entire movie is CG. You're basically just watching a CG
That's
movie.
why this whole Avatar thing is making me crazy, because people are jizzing all over it, and I'm like, it's a fucking cutscene from a video game. Get over it.
Listen, you haven't seen it, so you can't talk shit about it.
It sucks. I don't care. I don't
need
to see
it.
It blows. It's about fish people, and they suck each other's tails off. Maybe it's fins this time.
Say, but it does blow.
Anyway, let's not talk about Avatar. I feel like the last like 4 episodes we somehow start talking about Avatar and how Jason hates Avatar so much.
Look, I'll watch it, but I'm not paying for it. Okay, even if it comes to streaming. Even if it comes
I just don't know why you have to make a point where you're like, "Where's my microphone? I want to talk shit about Avatar again." Who cares?
Where's my mic? Oh, found it. You know, that Jake Sully or whatever his name is. What's his name?
Sully.
Yes.
Sully. He can get out.
He can get the heck out of here.
Put your legs back on
and he can take his Torak-2 flying abilities and shove it up his own tail hole.
So just a quick thing. The next one's going to be fire. So it was like earth, water, fire, and then the next one's going to be like.
Oh, good God! It better not be.
I think the next one he's going to go into like, because I haven't seen the new one either, but I believe it like deals with the Na'vi finding another tribe of Na'vi, and they're like the water tribe or something, and there's going to be like different tribes. But who cares? Because he's basically just making his own universe, James Cameron. Listen, he's made some of the best movies ever made, so
that's true.
Like, just let him do his thing.
You know what?
He's fine.
Fair enough. You know what? He made Terminator 2. He can do whatever he wants.
He made Terminator 2 and Aliens and True Romance.
Railroad tracks.
Okay. Sick impression. Let's go back to Starman.
You can make a 14-hour-long blue people cutscene from a video game.
Listen, he's probably has like a D&D mindset where he's like, I want to create a world and I want people to be able to visit Pandora with me, and that's what he's doing. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't,
change the color grade.
Who cares? Just watch something else.
Make some green ones. Make a red one.
In this one, all the aliens are green. Now.
I'm there, man. Why blue again? I'm sorry.
Because it's the same planet.
I'm done. I'm done.
So let's talk about Starman, the movie. He becomes a man, and he does one of the Starman. He does one of the coolest things I've ever seen, which is when he's watching. Karen Allen shows up. She tries to she realizes it's her husband. She freaks out and faints after he takes the gun. He's holding the gun in a very fun, weird way, where he's like holding the handle in a way that's like, is this how you hold this? And then he sees the person that he's taken the body of. He sees Jeff Bridges having fun shooting the gun, and he does like a thing where he like flips the gun and grabs it and then shoots it like really quickly. And it's such a clean, crisp like toss grab shoot that I'm like, I hope he did that one take, because imagine flipping that gun over and accidentally like shooting a blank like into yourself. He could have seriously injured himself, but he does it so cleanly. And she's already knocked out, but he fires a gun in the house and shoots through the window. And
wasn't it weird seeing young Jeff Bridges? I've only known him as the dude on, basically. So seeing him as like a young, like clean cut, he's still got that goofy face. When he's not making the goofy face, he's very handsome and chiseled. Yeah, and when he takes his shirt off later in the movie, he's ripped. He's ripped. So I'm gonna get this out of the way. I'm just gonna do this really quickly because I've been thinking about it, but I've figured out a plot line that I could retcon this in as the prequel to Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know that you hate it, and I really honestly try not to do the MCU things in our show. I try not to bring them up as comparisons.
I welcome them.
I try to relate the movies to actual other movies, because the MCU is this whole thing. It's the whole fucking, just 29 of them. Every actor's in them.
Already?
Yes.
But the thing is, I know exactly what you're going to say. So it's like,
no, you don't, because there's a twist to it.
Okay.
So,
M. Night.
No, well, kind of. So, Star-Lord's memories are wrong. Okay? So when his mother gets pregnant,
rewriting 2 movies.
His mother gets pregnant with him, right? And the Ravagers come and take him, right, and take him to space. And then in the second movie, Kurt Russell comes and he's like, "I'm your dad." His dad is actually the alien Starman from this, but his memory of he thought his dad was a famous star. So that they did the meta thing where they take Kurt Russell, make him his dad. He's a super cool 80s guy, right? He thinks his dad's David Hasselhoff. Turns out that his dad is actually Jeff Bridges, which is another level of meta, who's just another character that they could have from the MCU, right? So this
Jeff Bridges is in the MCU already.
He's in Iron Man.
Yeah. Tony Stark made this in a cave with scraps.
That's
Remember
true.
that?
Yes, but that character's dead.
That's true. He is.
They could put that Marvel magic on his face. I guess he's too big a star. But fucking somebody's like Aaron Johnson is playing Kraven, and that's going to be like his second time in the MCU. Aaron Taylor Johnson. Kick-ass.
Is he
Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
He's other Quicksilver.
JTT,
he's
back.
dead Quicksilver. Anyway,
right. But also the Spider-Man movies are essentially removed now from the MCU.
But they're also going to retcon
Sony-verse.
them back in because Sony and Disney love doing this one to each other now.
Ugh, it's so sad.
They're creating the
cares?
Spider-Man villain universe to create the Sinister Six.
Yeah, we all saw Morbius,
which
right?
is gonna
The
end
best
up-
movie ever made.
So Vulture and Morbius team up, and
I
Doc
have not
Ock.
seen it. I don't
Doc
care.
Ock's probably gonna, because Alfred Molina needs to work, and then
I don't know if he does. He was in Chocolat.
he was also in Solar Opposites, so
He's in a lot of movies.
he's in TV shows. Anyway, my point is, I'm just having fun, and as I'm watching this movie,
Yeah, sure.
Karen Allen's character could very easily be Star-Lord's mom, and
So what you're saying is that Star-Lord's actual name should be Starman.
Yes.
Not Star-Lord.
right. Another thing that kept going through my head as a wrestling fan is there's NES wrestling, like that's based on an anime from Japan about wrestling, and there's a Starman character in that called Starman, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Anyway,
David
I'm
Bowie
done.
is also known as the Starman.
Starman, and also the song from Walk Hard, the Starman song. So
Right.
I just wanted to talk about my little theories about how this movie is a prequel. It's forever in my head going to be a prequel to
This
Guardians
movie's
of the
part of the
Galaxy
MCU.
Volume 1. It fits very easily because Jeff Bridges was an 80s man movie star, and Star-Lord probably saw this movie, in fact.
Jeff Bridges has been around forever. He was in
can't believe
Tron, the first Tron.
He's in the first Tron and the last
and the
Tron.
second Tron. Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Where he's like, now I'm a wizard living on the grid.
This is my Jeff Bridges impression. I'm the dude and I oblige.
I got in, man. I got into the
oblige.
grid,
The dude
man.
obliges. Get me a rum and whiskey. Get me a white Russian. There it is.
White Russian.
Anyway, sorry. I wanted to
It's
get it out of the
okay.
way because I just wanted to get it out of the way. I know it only take me a couple minutes if you guys just let me say it instead of me trying to interject.
It's
little
in
bits.
now. It's in the MCU, and it's out there for everybody, to connect those
know
dots.
and connect the dots. If you have any ways to connect those dots a little bit more, I have more thoughts about it. I kind of was put on the spot when I put myself on the spot. I have more thoughts about it, but I'm not going to bore you guys with the details. But essentially, it's more meta shit like what they did with Kurt Russell. But it turned out that Ego may or may not be his father. Probably is. And then
Well, the thing about Ego is that
he's a planet. Also,
it's his ego is so big that it's literally a planet-sized ego.
It's just that dude. That dude banged his mom. The dude that
Yeah,
is
I always
part of
the way
Ego.
I always looked at it is like Ego is the living planet, and he just sends out a bunch of little versions of himself. There could be like
Ego,
a million egos everywhere.
Starman could have been from Ego. He comes down in a planet at the end. Spoilers.
Two planets collide when two become one.
And that just hit me right now that their spaceship is a planet.
Listen, man, every planet is a spaceship. We're just floating through space right now on a big old rock, baby.
That's true. Well, it's a disc. It's like a
Spaceship Earth.
It's a flat disc with like a reverse volcano and a firmament, and then we're on the back of a turtle, and the turtle has sentience and is our god.
Yeah. You've all read the Bible of Stephen King, right? So
You've all seen that one episode of It's Always Sunny. Sorry, go ahead.
he takes Jeff Bridges' body. Karen Allen faints because she's seeing her dead husband come back to life. And then he sends a distress call to his people, which I think we've established, or at least our belief, mine is anyway, that these aliens are made of pure energy, and these little balls are like basically magic not MacGuffins, but like little magic Deus Ex Machina balls that he can use to
technology
to accelerate the plot. They're little plot bombs, and he's like, "I'm gonna use this to make the plot more fun. Let's go,
let's go."
Did he drop limited amount?
I can bring him back to life.
When he was forming and they spill out, like, do they just kind of naturally spill out, or did he do that on purpose?
Oh, I actually had made a note about that. Do you think that they took 800 takes of that to get it? They took the one where they fall in a circle, or did they have magnets underneath the like carpet? So they fell.
They were probably weighted so they didn't just keep rolling forever. And who knows? I don't know. They could have filmed it in reverse. They could have placed them and then had them suck into his hand.
Yeah.
Or maybe there were divots in the ground. My leading theory is magnets. How do they work?
But also, like, when they spill out, it cuts.
Yeah, and then it just
back.
shows.
So they probably just let them roll and they cut back to it so that it's in perfect circle.
I blinked.
But the way I
pictured, you'll miss it.
Yeah, what I pictured is that he's made of pure energy, and these little balls are containment spheres that contain a bit of his energy, and he's contained within the body, but he has these separate from him so he can use them to do whatever he wants, to will his mind. He can do anything basically with those, right? We don't know what the limitations are, but he can blow up trees, he can bring things back from the dead, he can use them to create maps, he can use them to make a transmission. Yeah, they're basically little containment units that have a bit of his energy inside them, is what I kind of.
They're the Batman utility belt.
Yeah,
yeah, and I don't think that each ball specifically has its own ability. I think that they all just contain a bit of his energy, and he can use them to do something extravagant or mind blowing in whatever it is he needs in that moment, right? Yeah. So he uses one of those to contact his people to tell them to rendezvous on Earth to pick him up in 3 days at landing site 1 or something like that, which is like that's where the inferral.
3.
That's the inferral that they've been there before. This isn't the first time they've been there. So he's like, they'll know where that is because I don't know where I am right now, but they will know where that thing is, and I'll figure out where it is and get there so that I can get brought back home. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. I don't know. It's weird, right? Like, because it's subtitled. He's not saying anything. He's just kind of like with his hair going up, and it has subtitles of what he's saying. And I almost am like, you know what? I feel like they could have explained this to us some other way without us reading his language, and it would have been maybe more weird and odd to just see him going and us not know what the fuck he's doing, and then maybe explain to Karen Allen later, like, I made contact with my people, and we need to go to Hole. Where is Arizona? Maybe, or whatever. And he's contacting them. She wakes up and realizes she's not having a dream. She thought it was a dream at first, and she like half bottom naked like runs out of the house and then gets curious, right? Like she doesn't hop out in the car and leave. She's like, ooh. And he pops up and essentially kidnaps her. And they go on the road for a bit. And I think this is where we get our first cut to Scientist Man watching basketball. And we realize that, like, okay, so the military shot him down and they know where he landed, but now they're going to try and find him. And that's where, like, the road trip movie starts.
And they think it's a comet at first, and then they drill into it and it's hollow in the middle, and then they extract it. And in the next
I guess no
scene...
comments. Sorry.
What?
No, sorry, go ahead.
What?
I think it was just a joke, right? You're just making a little giggle.
No, I was going to say, are comets not actually ever hollow?
Well, it's a meteorite. It's not a comet, because comets are
I thought they kept calling it a comet.
No, they call it a meteor.
They call it a meteor? Okay, yeah. Anyway, I think they would be... They make a note of saying some stuff about how it's weird that it's hollow. So, yeah, I guess meteorites are... Or meteors. I know comet, meteor, and meteorite are like 3 separate things. For some reason in my memory, they kept saying it was a comet. So my bad.
It's all right. Doesn't really change the fact that they drill into it and it's hollow and everyone's shocked. And this is the first time he's about to light a cigar. And we're like, this guy smokes cigars. He doesn't seem like a cigar man.
Yeah.
And turns out it's like a spaceship, basically, right? They unearth it and bring it to some sort of government facility. We can, I think, because we're close and around Nevada, we can assume they're at Area 51, right? I don't know if it's ever explicitly said that they're at Area 51. That's probably where it is, though.
Well, they're somewhere between Arizona and Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, they go to
Pretty-
literally in this movie. They go to Las Vegas. So I'm like,
Yeah.
he must have landed, or they must have taken it to Area 51. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't think the movie wanted to get too caught up in like, ooh, it's Area 51, so they just didn't really care about it, right? It's like they're at some airbase somewhere. And
No, but he lands. So she's in or not Wisconsin. She's in some W state, which is close enough to drive to in 3 days.
Yeah.
Right. But that's where he lands. That's where his ship is,
Yes.
which was off trajectory. So you posit that they took that ship all the way down to Nevada, but they were also like trailing them. So I think it was. I think it was more like they took it to a nearby Air Force base in.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing you can argue is that like Starman and Karen Allen are in a car, and this is the U.S. military. They can fly anywhere they need to in like
That's true,
seconds,
too.
right?
Yeah. Basically, the Avengers did it, and
Tony Stark built this in a cave of skulls.
What's
Where do you think he got the idea to call himself Stark?
Starkman.
Stark man running through the Stark.
So they start their adventure, and I think the part where he brings up the map projection is really cool. It's a fun effect. I like that it's on the windshield of the car, and he just has like a map of the United States, but it's also projected onto their faces in a real fun laser show. Even though the effect behind them doesn't look that great, it almost looks like they're in a Zoom call.
They kind of predicted GPS pretty accurately, though. It's not. It obviously doesn't go up over your screen.
Yeah.
But you can pinpoint. You can look at a map on your computer's dashboard in the year of our Lord, 2023.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you think about the fact that he only has a certain amount of these like orbs, he is utilizing them pretty well. Like, he knows when and when not to use one, but like he probably didn't need to use one on the deer, right?
No.
But he did, just to show us that he can bring things back to life.
That's
But I mean,
100% what that was for. Yeah.
Just because of how many movies have like are rotting inside my skull. Like, as soon as you see the dead deer, you're like, he's bringing it back to life, right?
He's
like,
gonna powder that deer.
He's gonna powder the fuck out of that deer.
He's gonna Green Mile that deer.
He's gonna ET that deer, and he does, and it's nice. But that deer was
back a deer? No, never mind. I think it just feels it.
That deer was 100% like on drugs. Do you see that thing?
I was gonna say, how
did
it's
it
like
get
trying to
No,
get
I think it was an animatronic until they cut away and cut back when it's on the ground and runs.
I was looking really close, man. I was having a hard time trying to pick one or the other.
The deer is on the hood. It's a very long shot, but the deer is like trying to get its head up, and it's like struggling, and its legs are moving. It's not an animatronic. This thing, they put like a lot of drugs into this deer.
I'm 99%. It looked to me like a John Carpenter animatronic.
Do we have a person in the chair yet?
Dude, I was watching it with a veterinarian. The vet was like, or not a veterinarian, but I was watching it with Danny, and Danny was like, "Oh my god, how many drugs did they give that deer? Look at its tongue, because the tongue is like hanging in its mouth, and it's like it gets down, and like it can't even stand up at first, right? And then they like pat it on its butt.
That's it. I'm gonna call my own bluff.
That's fine, but you know, I feel like they wouldn't spend them. Why would they spend the money when they can just drug a deer? And then if they're going to use a real deer anyway,
are you allowed to drug a deer? Is that FDA?
I think well, deer are one
Back
of those.
then,
weird...
they did whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
the 80s
they
was
blew
still
up
a
so much
time
forest
when
in
they
this
did so
movie.
much shit. When they blew up that tree, I was like thinking, did they go down that street for each take and blow up a tree every? Like they had to do it a couple times, obviously.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I think with pyrotechnics that large, they tried to do it once. Yeah, because like when they blew up the forest, right? Like they did that once. They weren't doing that multiple times because that was a huge amount of brush that they blew up, man. Like that was like a Tropic Thunder level, you know, like at the beginning of Tropic Thunder where they're like, "We got one shot at this, come on," and then the whole forest tree line gets like exploded. If they messed it up, they would have to just use what they had, right? Like, we can't blow up another.
It looked like it was raining that day, though. I was like, it's a good thing they did this like on a damp, rainy day.
Right. Yeah. Especially if it's filmed in California, like there's lots of rules against like open fire now, right? Because of how many wildfires there are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised though if this movie caused some sort of Arizona wildfire out of control. The new movie Starman, directed by John Carpenter. We've lost hundreds and hundreds of acres of forest because John Carpenter needed to blow up for his tale about a man from the stars. So the details on this it's not going to be very strong because essentially from this point onward, it's just like a road trip movie, and road trip movies are sometimes hard to pinpoint what happens when, just because it's like, I remember this happening, but I can't remember it happened before or after this. But I believe the first encounter after leaving is when she goes through the red light, right? Like she hits the gas hard to get through that yellow. At first, when I saw that, I thought she was maybe trying to speed to like signal a cop to get pulled over so the cops would be able to rescue her. But no, she was just being a bad driver, which is a setup for like a fun joke later, right? A fun gag. But she still does get her point where she basically tries to play chicken with that like repairman or whatever, and they both skid off. And then she hops out screaming, "Help me!" And this guy runs out, ready to brain somebody with a tire iron. That guy gets out of his car. He's like, "What are you, some sort of asshole?" Like holding a lug nut wrench or whatever. Oh, that's wild. Like, I've been in like one or two fender benders in my life, but never have I had the urge to pull out a weapon to like fight somebody immediately. But then we get another orb, right? Out of this.
And it melts while it heats it up or whatever.
Yeah, he uses another orb to telepathically, I guess, like heat up. He uses basically like a pyro kinesis or whatever it's called. What's that movie, Firestarter, with Drew Barrymore?
I couldn't find any information on the deer, so.
I mean, just rewatch it. You can tell it's a real deer. Like, you can tell when something's animated and when it's or animatronic and when it's a real thing.
Firestarter, yeah. That was Drew Barrymore's first movie, wasn't it?
No, I thought E.T. was her
first. I think E.T., yeah. I think it was right. But I think they were, like, super duper close together.
She was all methamphetamine, dude.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But she's got her own talk show now, so yay. Yay for Drew.
Shall I tell you what I find beautiful about you guys?
She could have had that talk show at any point in her career. Sorry, Kaylin, go ahead.
No, I'll save it for later.
Well, what did you say?
I asked if I shall tell you what I find beautiful about you guys.
If you want, you know what's beautiful about you, Kaylin? You don't take no. You don't take no for an answer.
Sometimes.
Oh well.
I'm not partaking in this exercise. But again, Jason, like you're saying, the explosion, the tree behind him. Big, right? Big. Another big ass explosion. And like they don't really do another one after this. It's like huge explosion for the forest when the comet or the meteorite /ship/comet crashes. And then another huge explosion for this. To the point that like that tree got turned into splinters.
And what about the next huge explosion?
When is the next one? I can't remember.
What happens right before the next explosion?
Is it the gas station?
It's the high speed chase that results in a huge explosion.
Oh, right.
Making this film a movie by my credentials. By not my credentials. Nope. My brain's not working.
Your weird like ranking system or whatever, like your checklist of
criteria.
Yeah, the criteria.
Thank you, Cage. Yes, I posit that this fits directly into the movie category.
I think it's a little bit more elevated.
Whoa.
It's not like this is Death Wish or anything.
No, that's definitely a film.
Yeah, Death Wish is like, my entire family was murdered.
Now I have to murder everybody's entire family with explosions and high-speed chases and knife kills.
I need 15 guns and a bazooka, please.
How would you define posit?
I theorize.
To provide like
theorize.
Okay, so then
I'm saying.
Well, then how's deposit then?
Because it's two different
This
words.
is not an English language podcast.
Yeah.
Let's move along.
That's
when I gotta yell track.
Now.
Pull Pull up Google and search it.
I think posit is closer to postulate than it is deposit. Deposit means to put something in something else.
No, but like that's what I'm thinking. I'm breaking down deposit. So
No,
like
that's
when
you're
you
breaking
don't
it down
do
wrong.
something, and then posit when you give
You
something.
have to look up etymology in order to be able to talk like this, because you're just taking two separate ideas. I didn't make it up, dude. It's just words that are in place.
Yeah, the English language is made
Latin.
of like hundreds of other languages.
Yeah.
So let's just move along here.
Mostly stupid Latin.
Language is complex. Writing language is even more complex. So we get a big boom, and then he like heats up the crowbar. The guy drops it, and it also bursts into flames, which is kind of cool.
I wish he made a man burst into flames. That'd be a very John Carpenter thing to do.
Yeah, but I don't think that this Starman is like.
I know
evil.
he's not violent and evil.
Except he punched that guy. That threw me off when they get to that stop and he punches that guy. I was like, no, you ruined it for me. You're supposed to be this wholesome guy who doesn't do any of that.
I think he was learning how to punch for the first time at that point, though.
Yeah, didn't he get punched before that?
He gets punched and then he gets up and punches, and then he gets beaten up by 4 dudes.
Yeah, but I felt like him learning punching was against character.
No, but it was him. He everything that happens to him, he does like immediately, as like he just learned it.
He tries it.
I think that was him showing us. I don't think he meant to do it. I think he's got a flight or fight response just built in as whatever this.
Or he's just like, this is how humans interact with each other. So now I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like that reminded me of the Mr. Bean movie.
Take it easy.
Somebody gives him the finger, and for the rest of the movie, he's just like giving everybody the finger.
Yeah. I was expecting it to come up in an inappropriate moment.
Like a really funny, like the kiss at the end of the movie.
Or when he eats the pie, he just is like gives finger to like the waitress.
That would have been hilarious.
Yeah. Also, that server lady, I don't know if she's been in anything else, but like she was just she prepared. She came prepared that day. She's like, I'm acting.
Yeah, she was great. She was doing a like theater performance.
Yeah, like she was playing to the back of the audience. Like she was real expressive and she enunciated real hard and she was popping. She was as excellent as that apple pie.
Yeah, and it's great too because I believed that she believed that when when Jenny wanted to leave, she was like, "You can leave. That's fine. I'm not going to ask any questions. Just tell me you're okay." And then when she wanted to go with Starman, she was like, "Okay, They had like an immediate kindred bond thing that is rare in movies. You don't
it's one of those like
a tertiary character like that.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where it's like I recognize that this woman's in trouble, and me being a truck stop server and a woman, I know what it's like to be around
I
toxic
actually was
men.
just left here by some trucker back in the 50s.
No, she's probably like I've dealt with a ton of shit men. She's literally a server for truck drivers, right? Like people who are like isolated alone and traveling the country and don't have any ties anywhere else. So it's like they're probably not going to be the most sound of character in a lot of places, in a lot of senses. This is not me saying that all truck drivers are creeps, but I'm saying that if anybody in this movie is going to be a collection of creeps, it's people who are just passing through your state or your town. But yeah, she definitely recognized a woman in trouble and helped her out and did everything that she needed to. And also like pushed the plot along a little bit more, right? She's like, I know you were trying to escape from this man, but don't leave yet because he's outside and he'll see you. And she recognized how to stem the situation even further.
He's outside casting miracles.
Yeah. He's outside really staring hard at that deer. And also his hand is glowing.
Yeah. Does he have some disorder where his hand glows?
Where he creates light from the palm of his hand. Where are we here? Is that there's the bathroom part where she makes the note. She makes the note. Kidnapped, and then she puts the make, model, color of the car and the license plate and everything.
That's earlier, isn't it?
It's earlier than the diner. Yeah, we just didn't talk about it.
When she brings the deer back, I think that's when she's finally like, "I'm not kidnapped."
Yeah, we hadn't talked about this, and I thought it was kind of an interesting choice, and shows that the character is smart, right? Like she's figuring out ways to try and signal people to help her without making a scene and potentially putting her and herself in danger, because she knows that he's not right, and she's like, "There's something wrong. Obviously, he's in the corpse of my husband. So this is like some sort of
I watched this
ghost
man
magic.
be birthed. He turned from nothing into a baby, into a teenager, into a fully formed adult man who looks
Within
exactly like my
seconds.
dead husband. He just has
Yeah.
a slightly different nose, and he's dead behind the eyes. Because if there's one
Unbroken.
thing Jeff Bridges can do, is just look completely there's nothing there. There's
Yeah, the
nothing
dead
happening
eyes.
behind those eyes.
I will
dude.
applaud him for that. His stone face.
Yeah. There's a really great
like
shot.
A totally different person.
There's a really great shot later in the movie because you're right. He has this way of making like a vacancy, but like almost like a wax figure or something where he's just like unmoving.
Yeah.
And the eyes seem dead. But later in the movie, there's a scene where he's driving the car, and the way it's lit, his eyes are so vividly lit up that he, in that moment, like is like absolutely human. You know, you're like, oh, he's gone from being this like shell containing an alien to being a human. And I think that's right around the point where he's like, I think I like being human. Yeah, okay. You look human now, man.
I had no idea that he was going to talk all like he was going to have a weird patois, like a weird like
Yeah.
I am one of your human people.
He's like the quintessential like person pretending they're an alien.
Hello,
and, like,
can
just
I have
trying
one
to
of
get
your
by.
human glasses of milk? First of all, we don't just drink glasses of milk. And second of all, why did you say human glasses of milk?
Yeah. Because I am a human.
I am one of your normal Earth humans.
I am human man.
I am a human man.
Um,
Okay, well that tracks.
I also
Go
think
on.
it's
Here's
like-
your glass of milk.
Yeah, the reason he's speaking like that because he lists off all the language, not all of them, but like he goes through a few languages when he's first talking to her, and then he realizes she's speaking English, I guess. But it's almost like the accent he's trying to commit to is like, what if every accent with an accent like was mashed together into one thing, and he's like has all these different accents like layered
Well,
on top of
we
each other.
glossed over when he first talks. I think he got an interception on the radio from like in Mandarin. So the first time he talks is in Mandarin, or maybe Mandarin is on the Explorer.
Yeah, at
or the
beginning of
Voyager.
movie, it plays all those
Yeah,
greetings
right.
from Earth kind of thing, and it's like in French and Russian and all these different languages. So he knows about, I think they say later, about 100 phrases of each language mashed together. So he'll have like a really basic understanding of English, but he's also like a crazy sponge, right? Where he's
Yeah,
just
he
learning
spends all
constantly.
night watching those tapes of the family palling around. So by the time Jenny wakes up, he's already probably learned most of the language.
Enough to get by, that's for
Enough
sure.
to get by.
So she basically writes the note, sticks it on the mirror. He comes in and sees it, and you're like, is he gonna take it down? He doesn't. He leaves, and then she's, I think, paying for the gas, and he goes back in and looks at the note again, and then, you know, a few moments later, he's like, what does kidnapped mean? And this is, I think, the first.
This is much
moment.
earlier in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's worth talking about because it's
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
interesting. It's the first instance of him sort of asking her to define something. And like a lot of the times when she's doing it, she's doing an admirable job, but he's asking her to define things that are pretty difficult to define, right? Like love and saying goodbye. It's like, how do you explain to somebody what a goodbye is without using the word goodbye? It's like you let somebody know that you're leaving and potentially not coming back for their benefit, to let them know that you care about them, right? But like, if somebody said, define goodbye to me, I'd be like, hold on, give me a minute.
It's like when you leave and then it's a greeting you say when you're leaving. Define leaving. Going away.
Yeah.
Defined away.
I'm here and then I'm over there, but I let you know that I'm going over there.
They could have made it so much more annoying in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
What he says, define at points when it's like defined love, and it
Right.
sort of makes you yourself think how you would explain those specific
Yeah.
things, or like you reflect. There's a lot of you reflected during this movie. I thought a lot of real human moments, or an alien's learning a human moment that causes you, the viewer, to think about how you would sort of react in this instance. But if he was like, define the.
Oh,
Define car. Define
No.
bird.
Stop. We're in one.
Define define gas station. Define Dutch apple pie. Define Dutch. Define apple.
Yeah, you're right though.
Pie.
It's like the things that he is having to define to her are things that would be sort of difficult to explain, but they have her do it in sort of a poetic way. And like you said, you're going through your own head being like, how would I explain that? And then you think about how clinically you would explain something and how there would be no beauty to it. And she's like literally sitting there being like, I'll try and describe this in the most beautiful, meaningful way possible.
She has written by a few writers, in fact.
Exactly.
Over the
it's like
course
John
of
Carpenter,
many
5 other people in a room being like, all right, no, shoot. He's like chain smoking. Define love, people. They have like a whiteboard just full of, it's like love with a circle around it and like a million spider web things like with explanations.
Like English class or like an acting seminar. Yeah.
You see like the word horny underneath it crossed out. It's like, that's not love.
Horny is not love. Let's get that straight. Because if she comes over and she goes, it's like when you're really horny. It's not going to work for this.
It's like a horniness for your heart.
That's a different kind of movie and that's in a different kind of theater. So let's go to one of those when we're done here though. I got the cocaine.
So yeah, I just wanted to go through that kidnapping thing a little bit, and it's revealed that he has it, right? He has the note. He did take it, but you don't see him take it, so it's kind of left in the air for a minute. It would have been kind of cool if they let that breathe a little bit more, or like let it rest to a point that you forgot about the note, and then he pulls it out. Kind of maybe would have been kind of symbolic if he pulled it out closer to the point that she realizes she's helping him now, and she's not a hostage, or she's not being kidnapped anymore. Now she's choosing to help this guy. When the Stockholm syndrome sets in, when you fall in love with your captor or whatever.
Something I was going to bring up, that like this does really have a lot of like it does really feel like Stockholm syndrome a lot of times throughout the movie. Like eventually, like she does, like literally she does see him like raise the dead Brigadier back to life, and that's sort of her like turning moment.
I think that any of us, if we were exposed to this man and seeing that he genuinely wanted to get
she's
home,
about to leave. She's about to be like, fuck this.
She almost does run off,
She witnesses that moment, and then she's like, he's an alien, or he's a bit of sort of.
This is a side tangent, but in D&D, very early on in the main campaign, my characters went to like a farm in the middle of this like thick jungle, and they found a pen with a pig in it. And one of my characters can speak to animals. So he talked to this pig, and the pig explained that like he's there by choice and he likes being in the pen, but every once in a while he'll escape and the farmer will chase him around and try and get him back in the pen, and he always gets caught and gets put back in. And they're like, well, why don't you just run off into the jungle and just like lose him forever? And he's like, because I like being in the pen, but I think I like escaping and being chased even more. And that pig's name was Stockholm. Stockholm the pig.
That's awesome.
Yeah, anyway.
Did you write that? Sorry to keep on this, because that's really interesting. Did you come up with that, or was that?
That was an improv moment where I was like, I'll make something more interesting on the farm. And I was like, what's interesting? I'm like, there's a pen, a big giant slot pen with a single pig in it. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know they were going to talk to the pig. So I'm like, this pig's got to have something interesting going on. Like, he escapes all the time, and the farmer hates chasing him, but the pig loves being chased.
That's awesome. That's a really good bit of improv, because that's like a thing that everybody gets. That was my immediate thought. The first half of this movie is like, this lady's just getting like indoctrinated right now. She's gonna get Stockholm syndrome. She's gonna, if this movie has no paranormal element to it, this is a story about a lady who gets abducted by a man who looks weirdly similar to her husband, and convinces her that he's her husband.
Yeah. It's like, we know the Stockholm is coming because the movie needs to happen, but at the same time you completely understand it, right? Like, it's not a mystery to us why she's staying, because he's like a sweetheart who means no harm to anybody in the human race. He just wants to get home so that he doesn't die, and she wants to make sure he doesn't die as well.
And you have to remember that every single time she looks at him, she is literally seeing somebody she lost potentially a year ago, potentially days ago.
Yeah, it's a little unclear when I think she might mention it at some point. I know she talks about how long they were dating, and that like they got married like super
I remember
quickly.
that. So he had an accident. That's all we know, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they go into detail as to like what that accident was, but he probably shot himself by accident. Yeah, exactly. He accidentally shot himself because he loves his gun tricks. So yeah, let's push a little further. The deer incident leads to a fist fight in which he gets like Mortal Kombat uppercutted so hard that he does a backflip onto the hood of the car.
He does an '80s backflip.
it's
really
absolutely
tough?
wild. By like an old man too, like some old man, like you son of a bitch! Ah! Yeah.
What did you say, Karen? Sorry.
You thought it was actually Jeff that did the little stunt, or probably not.
They cut away really fast. I was thinking that too. They cut away super fast, but it was early enough in his career that he might have done his own stunt there. But
he might have done a springboard.
Yeah. They did cut away really fast. So
there's a few precarious moments where I'm like, did they get the actor to do that? Because I know, like, you know, it's still fairly early. It's like the early '80s, I believe. This movie, '82 or '84. Okay, '84.
I think that right after this scene, I want to just talk about this for a moment because there's a good line in this movie that's very John Carpenter, and it's the scientist and the SCTI guy and military dude sits like kind of sitting around trying to figure out like what he is, like what he is, and the scientist guy's like, oh, he's clearly like a clone, and I laughed out loud. I was like, of course they would just immediately go to clone, and the other guy's like, maybe he's you know, he kind of tells a story about a missionary going to a tribe of cannibals and getting eaten. And then they say, but who's the missionary? I think the SETI guy says, who's the
cannibal and who's the cannibal? Which one of us is the bad guy here?
And I was like, oh fuck, that's one of those deep moments, one of those John Carpenter fucking your head's gonna hurt a little bit trying to.
Yeah.
Obviously,
moments like
he's the missionary of peace, and we're a bunch of fucking. The '80s were messed up. Like it was the first inkling of the way that the world is now, right? So it was just people were like, nothing is right.
I wanted to add to that, which is like when I watch movies like this, especially when I was younger, I was like, this would never happen this way. Like everybody would want to meet the alien, and then you look at like today's culture, and you're like, no, there would be some asshole who's like, we gotta kill his ass.
We gotta look
right now.
What his guts
why
look
though?
like.
We invited him here. Like we gave him an invitation, and he came, and then we shot his ass down. Like what are we doing?
It's the old like if Jesus was real, like if religion was real, and Jesus just came back like tomorrow, and he'd come in here and be like. No,
you're not Jesus.
No, you got it. You didn't. You got it wrong. And and then also everybody would be like, you're not Jesus. I'm Jesus. Look at how many TikTok followers I have. But I think Jesus would be like, this is not what I meant.
No, if Jesus came back and he acted exactly how the Bible states he acted, he would be a homeless person. He would be on the streets like, nobody believes in the Son of God.
Fucking socialist.
Yeah. So
it goes the scene we just talked about, and then it goes to the scene we talked about before the kidnapping bit. So we're after that now.
Yeah, and then so we get a setup for these like not hillbillies, but they're like truck folk or whatever, and like you think it's gonna now the element of the chase is going to be different, right? Like we've got the military chasing them, but the military
is Donnie Bob, just to put that in perspective for you. We gotta get him, Donnie Bob.
Oh yeah. Well, let's call him Donnie Bob. And then they have their fist fight. They have a little mild chase before the car plows into a coach bus, and the guy gets out and he's like, he hit me and then ran off, and he's like making it's like a Karen moment where he's like over exaggerating his end of the story without like prepositioning that he uppercutted him so hard that he did a backflip. And then we get a chase, like a little car chase where these two cops are following him. Both of those cops, by the way, are people we recognize in this day and age. Is like one of them is like a character actor who's in fucking everything. Like he's in like Lost and Club Dread. I watched the other day. He's in Club Dread.
The two cops, right?
Yeah, and the other one is Hitchcock from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, it's literally Hitchcock. That's who it was. It's like I was like, he's got that goofy face. What I recognize him from, but it's not Kyle Gass and it's not Andy Richter.
Yeah, it's very rude of me to say, but he has sort of like a piggish fit. Like he looks a little bit like a pig, and like I think that's why he's done so well playing police officers in his age, because we were like, he kind of looks a little bit like a pig, so let's just make him one.
Let's make him one.
Yeah. And like these two cops, they do that sort of like bullshit thing that, again, I'm like, no, they wouldn't do this. Like they'd be professional and they take their orders and they listen. And it's like, no, we're gonna make them be like, we're gonna get the glory for this one, brother. Let's go. And they try to they're trying to tow his car. They're trying to like break into his car, and then they go to a motel, and like the motel has some event happening. What is the event?
Sorry.
Or something.
I didn't realize that MC Gainey, the other cop, was who he was. That you just blew my. They both looked familiar to me when I was watching that scene. I knew one of them was more familiar, but I didn't realize that the one guy is the dude from Lost, he turns out to be gay.
Yeah, he's one of the others.
And he's one of the others. He's like the leader of the others when they first meet them. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was one of those things where it was like, this guy's chin is out of control. And then I was like, after I got over how out of control his chin is, I was like, wait a minute, that chin looks familiar to me. I feel like at some point this man fills in his face so that the chin is not as crazy as it is here. Because his chin is like a square. You're like, holy shit. And they what is the event at the motel? Kaylin, did you say it? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's like spring break maybe, or Mardi Gras or something.
They'll have little flag things. I don't know. Maybe
it's a bunch of young people.
Sort. Yeah, maybe like
and
the
they're
local
having a good
sports
time.
team is just
and one
local
champion,
sports game.
Yeah, one champion of men knocks on their door, and he's like, "Hey, man, I don't know if that's your car out there, but the cops are trying to break into it." It's just some good Samaritan, trying to be like, "Hey, guys, you don't know me, but I'm trying to help you out if that's your car."
I mean, when you say good Samaritan, are you saying that facetiously?
Yeah, it's more like fuck the cops kind of thing, right? Like, these fucking pigs, let's go fuck with. And then they get I don't know if they do it of their own accord or if they ask them to, but they start hucking vending machines down the stairs, which is crazy.
That was a moment where I had to look away for a second, and I didn't pause it. Like I didn't pause the movie to look away.
Yeah. Not because you were scared.
Vending machines.
Oh my God, there's vending
that
machines.
poor vending machine.
No. I looked away for a second. So from my point of view, what happens is the cops get a call from the feds. The feds say, "Don't fuck with them. Keep an eye on them. If they interact with you, then you can take action. Leave them alone." Yeah. And then the cops say to each other, "Let's get ourselves into a situation that causes us to get into a situation where we have to deal with them." Then a vending machine falls down the stairs. Then they're running again. So I kind of I know that there was like an event happening. I saw I kind of looked over a few times. Like I was just taking care of something, and it was just so funny that a vending machine falls down some stairs, and then they're fucking bolting in the car again. But thank you for filling that in for me, because I was curious about like who. I thought Starman threw the vending machine down the stairs, but then I was like, how do you get to the car so fast?
Yeah, no, you just got some rowdy teens to help him out.
That's awesome.
And then we move on and to they get into a car chase with the cops. He pulls out the gun. Bad idea. The cops pull out their shotgun and kill Karen Allen. They shoot her to death.
It's a handgun, isn't it?
Yeah, he pulls his handgun out, and then the cops pull out a shotgun.
It is a shotgun.
And shoot into their car and blow her away.
Her whole side is
is dead. She's not dying. She's dead. And then he uses one of his orbs to make a oil tanker explode, like an 18-wheeler.
Well, I thought he used the orb to protect themselves.
Maybe, yeah.
No, that's how I interpreted it too. So what happens is they're having this crazy chase, like this gun chase, and they put out like an APB, and it just so happens that up the road there's an oil tanker that's over outside, and there's other cops up there. Yeah, there's a little bit of plot armor there, I thought, but it worked out well because we got a car chase and an explosion in the same 5-minute chunk.
It's just there to make it more interesting for us, right?
But they drive. He guns it. They drive into it, explodes, and then we get this really cool scene, this almost like Terminator scene of him walking out completely untouched. She's dead, but she's not burnt to a crisp either. He clearly used the orb to cast some sort of cleric magic. And then correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't look away for this. Did they actually show them get onto that moving house?
The house?
The trailer house?
No, I think it was just the smoke, and then they're in that house.
They get away. They just get away, and the cops are like, how the fuck because there's just how did they do any of that?
That was also the orb.
It just kind of it cuts to them like inside and him putting her down dead and then giving her his jacket and then he does the magic on her to heal her basically.
No.
And then she wakes up.
I think he's only got 2 orbs left or whatever, 2 marbles.
Yeah, he uses his second to last orb to bring her back to life. So he only has 1 orb after that.
That's interesting because I didn't look at it like he only had a certain amount of orbs throughout this movie. Like I wasn't really like each orb is being used once kind of thing. But I do, because I've watched so many movies where usually the person who can bring people back to life can only do it once. I was like, didn't he bring back
Dragon Ball Z?
Didn't he bring that deer? It's an anime trope for sure. I was like, didn't he?
Yeah,
bring
that's
a
why
deer
I was
back to
like, these
life?
orbs contain his power, and he can use them to do whatever he needs in the purpose of the plot of the movie, which is fine. I'm fine with it. It's cool.
7 or 9 or
He had 6, didn't he?
I can't remember how many he has. He uses 1 to communicate, 1 for the map, 1 to heal the deer, 1 to make the tree explode and the tire iron turn to heat, 1 to shield them in the vehicle, 1 to bring her back, and then he has 1 more. So 8.
Nice 7. Yo, Dragon Ball. Yo.
Well, he has 8. He has 8. He has 8.
He's got the Dragon Balls.
Oh wait, does he have 8 or 7? Anyway, who
if he eats all of them at the same time, does he go Super Saiyan? That's how that works, right?
So my
Goku eats the Dragon Balls to become Super Saiyan, right?
Yeah.
There's a dragon. There's an evil dragon that eats them.
Each one is
I
a
know.
wish.
I know what
He's
actually.
wishing on
I
each
know.
one.
I've seen it. I know enough.
So
yeah.
I assumed he needed.
Well, actually,
I assumed he needed 1 to leave, right? I thought he was going to need that last one to get back to his ship. So like to me, I was like, oh no, he only has 1 left, and he has to use it to get home. Like that was what my brain was telling me. Yeah. If he uses that one, he's trapped here forever. But I guess it turns out that he had an extra one left over, and he's like, I have put baby in you. You have my baby. It is my baby and your husband's baby. And he's like, he gives her that one, right? And she's like, what do I fucking do with this marble?
How long do I have to hold on to this marble for?
And he's like, the baby will know. He will know what to do when the time comes. And I'm like, what is that baby gonna do with the fucking
Star-Lord?
He's gonna put them into a cool pair of guns that can do all kinds of different magic.
True.
And it's gonna keep your fucking Discman alive, your cassette
forever.
player alive forever.
It'll make your cassette tape indestructible.
Walkman.
Your Walkman.
Is the Walkman a thing in the comics, or is that something that was created for the movie?
No, in the comics, they're very much like those. They're very much just like a band of superheroes, but they're just from space. But they're not. But they're all made. I think they were just all made up.
This wasn't my question. Is the tape recorder in the comics?
Oh, well, there's kind of there's more to it than that. I think that the aesthetic of the Guardians, as we know it, is mostly from the movies, and now the comic books are like that.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
So the answer I think is no. There was no Walkman.
Yeah,
in the original.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think the Walkman.
This is Kalen's his app where it's like get to the point or whatever. What's your app called?
Oh, so when I was a child and my grandmother would make delicious blueberry
it's like, shut up and tell me the answer. Just tell me how to make apple pie.
Scotland. I always thought my dog Rufus was a nice dog, and he was
the
a
reason I
brown
asked
dog.
is because I played the game recently, and I know the game is like the tape recorder is a big part of the character in the game as well. And I'm like, is that something that was adapted by the movie created by the movie and then adapted to the game, and did it make its way into the comics?
Avengers game and the Guardians game are like alternate universe versions of the MCU.
I didn't ask about the Avengers game.
No, but I'm just
fuck that shitty game.
I'm just trying to give you some context.
I know, I'm joking.
Just trying to give you some context.
I just don't want to derail us again because we're getting late into the app.
That's true. Oh shit!
I want to play video games.
Yeah. Are we gonna play something after this?
I'm doing.
Maybe I took some like flu medication before we started, and I'm like in some weird zone right now.
Okay, let's wrap her up, and then me and Kaylin, we can talk off camera if we want to continue the stream on some games.
Okay. So yeah, we let's just. She gets left at the truck stop or whatever, right? Like yet another truck stop. I'm like, how many truck stops are gonna go to this?
There were a lot of truck
movie?
stops.
Well, that's what happens when you go on a road trip.
Yeah, and then they do like a checkpoint, right, where they're stopping all traffic to basically scan through everybody to figure out if people is an alien or it's like, are you an alien? Are you an alien? But I guess they know he's in the body of Jeff Bridges, right? I can't remember how they
I
determined
wasn't too
that.
sure if they would recognize him or not, because
No,
he was
they-
just kind of standing there like it was nothing.
Yeah, they find his hair, I think, in her house, and they're like, "We got some hair, and we know it's this guy."
They put it
yeah,
together
they know
early
he's
in the
dead
movie.
and stuff. Well, they know
Yeah.
his details, but I'm
Yeah.
sure they could find a picture of him.
Well, no,
Like,
there's that scene where they hold up a picture. They're like, "This guy has been
Yeah.
dead
For
Right,
2
he's
years.
walking around." And
Oh wait,
how
they
is
do
he-
say he died 2 years ago. They say
Yeah,
that at
yeah.
that point. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How is he walking around and kidnapping his ex-wife,
Exactly.
The devil.
or I guess his wife?
And then they get into
My wife.
oh wait, she gets some weird little fucking greaser man who's like, "Hey, I can take
The
care of you.
hot rod
Hop into my race car."
Not to my
It's
muscle
like a
car from the fucking
super old timey
1920s.
muscle car. Yeah, some Hot
That
Wheels.
looks awesome.
I
Fucking
have
It was
one of
cool.
those.
Yeah, some guy from American Graffiti showed up to save the day.
Yeah.
He reminded
Yeah.
me of the kid from Shawshank Redemption. That guy from Ally McBeal that shows up kind of like midway. He's all like full of like spunk and like kind of like Elvis-y.
Right. Yeah. And then he drives her super speed to the checkpoint, and he creates a diversion by lighting a gas
Just
tank
lighting a
on
gas
fire
tank on
and
fire and
throwing it.
whipping it, and then it
I
blows
thought he was
up, and
gonna
everybody goes, "Oh,
This fucking simp.
yeah."
When he
He-
threw
he's
that, I
like-
was worried he almost fucked up.
She like shows him
Yeah.
her collarbone, and he's like, "I'll do anything."
Also, the way he throws it, he doesn't throw it like to the side. He throws it over his own car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Off
and then
camera.
ducks like it wasn't far enough away. It
Yeah.
could have just blown him up.
And then he races off, and he creates a distraction basically, which is like, I'm like, my response to that was, who is this man, and why the fuck
Obviously
is he
created a
doing this?
distraction.
This lady says,
Yeah, like
"All right, you make a distraction." Sure thing, lady.
the people
I'm
we're
gonna light
looking
this thing on
for
fire and hug it.
already.
Yo, I'm
already,
that guy. I would do that if I was on like break from the shop, in the
You'd
little
risk
diner
getting
having my
killed.
food. Somebody's like, "Hey, I need to get there real fast." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it."
Right.
The people
Well, you're a
they're
better man than
looking
me.
for already survived a massive explosion, and now there's another explosion. Like, just
Yeah.
disregard that explosion. We double have to keep an eye out for the people we're looking for. And the funny thing about that is they just like kind of walk by. They just kind of walk by and down under an underpass, and
Yeah,
cars
and they
are
get into
going
a
by.
pickup
like,
truck or
more
whatever.
cars are going by.
Yeah.
You can see the police in the background, just like looking the other direction. They're like nonplussed by it, or they're not non-fussed by it, I guess I should say. They just kind of get in the back of a. I wanted to say, like,
Toyota, Dodge Ram,
no, like
Ford.
It was the truck of some people from the south of the border coming into.
Yeah,
the
there's not
country or
really. They don't really.
something.
They go into detail.
But then the
there
person looked
are people in the
pretty
back of the pickup truck.
indigenous, also. So I didn't really know what was.
I don't think the movie goes too hard in any direction for you to sort of figure out what's going on there. It's just another device for them to move.
Just to bounce. And
But
that
it's also
shit didn't
How
look
many
like
devices?
that didn't look like a soundstage or a green screen. The background on that looked pretty legitimate. What do you
yeah.
guys
No,
think?
I'm pretty sure it was. They just filmed in a moving vehicle.
And
But
were you following like the background? It looked really,
Yeah.
it looked really cool.
no, yeah. I don't think. I think they just had a camera rig on the car and just were like driving slowly down a road and shooting the scene. But it's also its purpose. This scene's purpose is to like introduce the idea that she wanted to have babies with her husband, but was physically incapable, which makes her
When you giving us a baby?
which makes her which makes her pregnancy miraculous, right? Like, we know now that she is incapable of having children, and it's quite clear that this is like traumatizing to her. Like, she's very saddened by the fact that she couldn't have children.
Kind of like Dogma.
Well, this is
Yeah.
when he's like, he asked her, "Did you and Scott
Did you have
Scott,
babies?
Did you guys
Yeah.
have a baby?" And she was like, "No, I was one of the lucky ones who actually couldn't have a baby." That probably freaked his bean because he has a basic, understanding of the English language as it is. But I'm making a joke there. So basically, he
Aha!
he asked if they wanted one, and she was like, "Yeah." Yeah.
And then he gives her one in the next scene because they have sex on a train.
They have a
Which is
they have
so
an
weird.
80s sex scene, but it's not like one of those weird actiony movie graphic ones.
No, it's not a
very-
Terminator sex scene,
No,
which is like borderline pornography.
not. It wasn't 5 minutes long
Terminator
for
wasn't
some
that
reason.
bad.
It's so long. They're weird. Why are they so long?
Yeah, I think Jason and I are both of the opinion that like porn exists, we don't need to have any pornographic sex scenes in our movie unless it's really important to the
Not
Somehow really
anymore,
important.
but back
Or
in
if
the
it's
day,
hilarious, like
No, ever.
like something like MacGruber, or like the two superheroes fighting in The Boys sex scene was like
Yeah,
hilarious.
or this movie we're talking about, which is the purpose of it is that she gets pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Like it's part of the story.
He's
So they
clearly
have
a
to.
two-pump chump, and he just gets the job done, and then it's very mechanical. And then he's sitting on the side of the train, grinning like an idiot, which
he's like,
I laughed
Can
out
we do
loud
that
at.
again?
Could
Yeah.
we do that again?
I would like to do that more.
We would.
And then
we
they
should do that
miss their
more.
stop, which I found hilarious. I think I made
Yeah.
the joke to Danny. Like she's like, "Oh God, we overshot it by about 30 miles or something. We probably shouldn't have
300
had
miles. In fact,
300 miles. We probably shouldn't have had sex 10 times on the train." And he's like, "It was worth it."
It's like if we can rent a car, it'll be fine. It's like rent a car.
Yeah, and then we get the fun moment where he uses his magic to. He doesn't use an orb. He just has control over electronics, I guess, and he
it's
uses
made
it
of
to.
electricity.
Yeah, he uses it to win money. First he gets like a low stakes game, probably enough to buy a car, and then he goes to the jackpot and gets like $500,000 or some shit. And it cuts immediately then to them pulling out of a car
With
lot
like a nice
with
Cadillac.
a brand new car. Yeah. And then interspersed between all this shit, we keep cutting back to the scientist who it's mostly expository, right? To like, where's the military at? Here they are.
He just wants to smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I noticed about the military is that literally for the whole movie, they're just literally the next scene is them at the last place that Starman and Jenny were at, going like, "How do we miss them? We missed them by minutes, even though we got helicopters."
Yeah.
And
they're just bad at their jobs.
they're super bad at their jobs. And the SCGI guy, Mr. Chalmers, I think his name is.
Yeah, Super Nintendo charm.
Super Nintendo Chalmers.
Sherman.
Chalmers.
No. Mark Sherman.
Mark Sherman. Why did I think his name was Chalmers? He is just perpetually trying to throw a wrench in their works, is what I realized in the end. He has no interest in really helping them, and he's not really hindering them. But he is very much like, I'm a scientist who's never met a person. I am with the branch of the government who looks for extraterrestrial life. I want to just meet this person. So they keep there's two specific scenes around this time where they show like a bed, like a laboratory room with like a lab bed with like leather straps.
Yeah, they're
He's like, "What are these
it's like
leather
it's
straps?"
like an autopsy table almost. Like you know what they're gonna do to him. They're gonna cut
It's
him
like,
open and look.
obviously we're going to dissect this alien, and it's like, no.
I think one thing
Wrap 'em
we
down.
didn't. I think one thing we didn't really talk about, which I kind of liked, and I think it's kind of dope, is this guy, Super Nintendo. What I don't forget what his name is. Like the scientist guy, Cigar Man. We got Starman and Cigar Man. He doesn't work for the government. They go to him because of his expertise. Like they find him.
Well, SETI is a thing.
I know it's a thing, but he specifically says I'm basically like a library book. Like they brought me in because I am the best person on earth for this, or at least within the United States. I am the best of the best, and that's why they brought me here. Which is cool because it just immediately lets you know as the audience, like, this guy is not technically part of the military. He's his own entity that is so good at his job that the military came to him and was like, we need you to do this because we don't know how. So it kind of elevates him as like this super brain, right? You're like, this guy is the smartest man in the room at all times.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's sorry, I thought it was a brand. I thought it was a branch of the government, but it's just a private organization.
Yeah, which again, the reason I bring it up is that it just like lets us know that like this guy is so good at his job and he's so passionate about what he wants, which is just to meet an alien and have a conversation. And he's like disgusted by the fact that the government is not interested in having a conversation with him. They want to cut him open and learn about his body.
But ironically, wouldn't they just cut him open and learn that he's just a human being inside?
Yeah, that's true. Like they cut him open and a bunch of light would come out and then it would dissipate or whatever. Like, what the fuck was that? This is just a human corpse.
I don't even think that would happen. I think they would cut him open and he would die because he's in human form, and he would just be like, "Oh, we just cut this human person open,"
which I guess is no
answers. Be like an X-Files episode.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to the yet another truck stop where he eats the cherry cobbler, which
the final truck stop.
My favorite pie, by the way, the best pie of all pie, cherry cobbler. Oh God, yeah.
Blueberry pie is the best one, but
I mean, it's an opinion, and my opinion is that cherry cobbler is the best pie. And guess
Okay,
what? It's in
fair
this
enough.
movie.
What about lemon meringue?
Hey, look, those are three great pies. Apple pie, great pie. You know, cherries
Apple
up
pie
there
is
for
like
me
the
What
too.
about
basic
chicken?
pie. Chicken pot pie. Ooh,
Chicken
yeah.
pot pie, hell yeah! For savory pie, fuck me up with a savory pie.
But this is also like the tragic scene where you realize he's dying, right? Like it's like, oh, he's not gonna get left behind and die.
Because
He's
he starts
literally
making this
dying.
face.
He's like, oh, and he's getting like bags under his eyes, and he looks sad. And I was like, oh man, he's losing gas. Like he's gonna die soon. And this body was just on loan, and it's gonna be a corpse again pretty soon. So we then get the scene where all the cops show up, and somehow the scientist guy gets there first. Like he
Oh, right,
drives,
that one. Right.
he drives, and he's like, and then he gets to have his little conversation. And at first, you're like, oh no, he's siding with the government. He's going to hand him over, but then he does the right thing, and he lets them go. And he's like, nope, wrong people.
Wasn't
And
them.
they leave. They go to the Grand Canyon or wherever the fuck, I don't know, big crater in the ground. And the military man shows up, and this is where we finally get our satisfaction of the scientist lighting his cigar,
Yeah.
blowing it in the colonel's face, and essentially rocketing us to the end of the movie, which is them getting into the hole in the ground. The military
That stumble looked real. What do you think?
stubble.
When they're going into the crater and he stumbles a little bit.
Oh, I didn't track that.
Could have just been good method acting, but I'm sure that it was very rocky terrain.
I think in most movies where you get a natural stumble, that was just a guy stumbling, and they're like, you know what, this is good. I like that it's showing him being weak.
I was wondering because they didn't show wide shots of this crater enough. Is this like a real crater that exists? Was it a matte
It must be
painting?
because it's way too big for them to have dug that out for just specifically.
No, I
for the
know.
movie.
Yeah, but was it a matte painting? And then they just did like
No,
interior
I
shots
don't
of it?
think so. Because you can sort of tell that the orb is like matte painting ish, but the crater looks pretty real. I would probably have to go back and watch that scene again with that sort of that lens on to be like, is this real or am I looking at a matte painting? But I'm pretty good at tracking matte paintings in movies because I usually like to sit there and bask in them when I see them. I'm like, oh, look at that sick matte painting, so good. And then we get the cool ship, the big silver ball, which at first I was like, ooh, it looks like an eyeball. And then as it gets closer, you realize it's reflecting
And now
the
it's time for
crater.
Jason to relate this movie to Final Fantasy.
Okay, go.
Okay, look, it's not a big one.
He's so enthusiastic.
I'm gonna start doing it like that because I want to make Steve angry.
And my response will be, ugh.
Ugh. You're gonna relate,
And then
to
I'll
a
be
Final
here
Fantasy.
as the aloof one.
You're gonna be like,
I can do that.
Tell
All
me
it
all
is-
about it.
all
How
it
does
is-
Cloud Strife
Nope.
relate to this
Nope.
crater?
no. Before I had the epiphany that Ego from the MCU is a literal planet, and this literal planet is coming down to collect the
Shit.
seed that brings back Star-Lord's dad. I noticed that there's a super boss in Final Fantasy IX, which is basically a planet, and it has two hemispheres that are like spinning in different directions, and it looks really cool. It's a super boss called Ozma, and that's all. It just looked like Ozma to me.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
not a
you're
whole.
not-
It's not a theory. It's not like, oh, and actually, if you look at how
So just a
Karen's-
visual similarity.
visual similarity, and if you look at how Karen is sitting next to
Clearly, John
Starman,
Carpenter stole his
and
idea
how
from
the
Final
ship
Fantasy
comes
IX,
down,
a
it's
movie,
Final
a game that
Fantasy
came out
VII.
20 years later.
when they're at the Great Crater near the end of the game, they actually have sex.
In the crater.
That's a real fan theory, but
And then
that's another
the ship
story for another time.
sends a sick red beam down to them, and it looks very cool. I like that it blots out the sun completely, and it makes it look like nighttime in the crater, but it keeps cutting back to the military. Also, we had a couple of fun little helicopter bullet scenes where they're like, this is so stupid, but like, I think it's funny. It's like they're shooting at them and shooting rockets at them and machine gunning them, and they're like, stop, stop moving or we'll shoot. But they're like, it's like while they're shooting, like, we're gonna shoot you if you don't stop. It's like, no, you're gonna shoot them either way because you already are shooting at them, you scumbags.
Also, the budget was spent on helicopters in this fucking movie.
Oh god, yeah.
The amount of helicopters that just showed, like, did they use stock footage? Like, how did they get like 30 helicopters
I don't think
to just like
maybe
come in and
this
land?
movie probably had a big budget, man. This is like
How much does
this
a
is
helicopter
after a
cost?
couple of his bangers where they're like, all right, John, here's all the money you need. He also
I'm not having a bit of a slump, and that's why he made this one.
well, maybe a personal slump, maybe, but he still had the blank check powers of Halloween, where he made a movie for the smallest budget ever and made the most movie returns. So the studios are still like, John Carpenter is the man.
Yeah, please
Give him all the money he
whatever you
needs.
want to make. God
Yeah,
damn.
he might have been in a personal slump where he didn't know what to make, and that's why he made it. But I don't think that he was in like a career slump because he
It's
never
so-
really was in a career slump. He was always like, he's one of those guys where he was still living. He was living off the rep of how much money he made a studio for Halloween.
It's
And his
so
movies have
unlike
always
any of
made
his other
money.
movies, though, which is the weird part.
But the thing is that so many of his movies are so different from one another that it's like every movie you're watching, you're like, holy shit. It's like you can tell his DNA is there. Like his fingerprints are all over the scene of the crime. But like it's like a million different types of crime scenes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I think he's one of the greatest living filmmakers, and it's really sad that he hasn't made a movie in like 20 years.
Because he doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to, and he doesn't want to. I think he's like, if a movie came along that I really wanted to make, I would, but I'm completely happy living off of people remaking my movies, 'cause
Or
a nice little paycheck flows down into my hand.
every idea that he brings to the studio, they're like, no, I'm not making. What are you talking about?
I don't think that's the case. I think if he showed up, people would be like, hell yeah, what do you want to do, John?
I want
I
to
don't-
make a movie where it's like they live,
It's all like weird Trump
But,
movies, like
like,
Trump
Maybe we
supporter
could
stuff.
start a petition.
but like it's a porno. It's like he just like
Yeah,
a
he
They
just wants to
Live,
make
this
porn,
ain't They
and he's
Live.
in the
Yeah.
background playing a
And
synthesizer.
he
the whole
plays
time.
this wacky synth music in the background.
Yeah,
What if it's like Halloween, but it's a porno?
but it's porn.
That would be a good.
I think he's completely. I think he's completely happy just smoking weed and playing video games and doing his
That's-
concerts and shit.
I'm happy with that.
that's kind of it's like a Danny Elfman kind of a thing, where he had Oingo Boingo and then made many great film scores, and then this year at Coachella he was like, what if I just do my songs, my Oingo Boingo songs, but then we just fucking play the hits from the movies. You just do whatever
Yeah,
you
Danny
want.
Elfman is a really super interesting guy. That would be a fun month if we just picked a bunch of Danny Elfman scored movies and like see how tonally it like clips together. I watched Flubber the other day
Spider-Man,
and I was
Is that
like,
Danny?
this music sounds really like
Age of Ultron.
super-
You can always hear his
super
music.
Tim Burton music, and then I was like, oh, Danny Elfman. Okay, his name popped up. I'm like, that's why.
It's disappointing.
It's
that
Tim
his-
Burton's man.
He did the Age of Ultron score, but he just
I didn't know that.
used the same, like he just used the Avengers theme, so it doesn't really feel
Doesn't have
like Danny
his
Elfman.
sort of personality. Yeah.
But his version of the Avengers theme is better than the original. It's more whimsical than the original version.
It's got that Danny Elfman magic.
Yeah,
that elf quality. It's got pointy ears on it. That's what we should start.
Little pointy boys on it.
That's what we should call Danny Elfman music. We'll be like, this movie's got some fucking elf
Fucking
ears on it.
elf
Some
ears,
pointy
man.
ears, boy.
Like, yeah, you're watching a Nightmare you're watching a Nightmare Before Christmas, okay, buddy?
Yeah.
You're watching a Nightmare
So
on
that's-
Elm Street.
Yes. Conducted by Danny Elfman. So yeah, that's the end of the movie, and I guess we can move on to final thoughts. Maybe, are you guys good to do that, or do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Nope. No, I'm good.
Oh, we didn't
Sorry,
mention
Jason.
a
I know
lot
you're
about
hosting this
fights.
week, but I sort of just like jumped in.
Well, you were supposed to host,
I was
and
supposed
since
to
you're
host,
not
yeah.
feeling well, I took over the beginning of hosting, but then you got into the groove, and I let you do your thing.
Yeah,
I did it. All right. So sorry, Kaylin, you wanted to say something?
the red light, green light, yellow light.
Oh, right, yeah. That's the fun joke where she speeds through the yellow light, and like I said, I thought that she was trying to signal the police to her kidnapping, but she was just being a bad driver. And then later, when he's driving, he does the same thing, and she's like, "I thought you said you knew how to drive. I thought you said you watched me." He's like, "I watched you very carefully.
I watched you.
Green is go, red is stop, and yellow is go very."
That's
fast."
an old 80s like stand-up joke too, that I remember being really hacky, and comedians would be like, "Where I come from, it's like
Yeah,
green means go and red means
that's
stop
true.
and
Yeah,
yellow means go fast." And I was like, "Did that come from this fucking movie?"
or it's just like that's just a
It's
funny
an
thing that
unwritten rule.
people would
That's-
say, right? And it's like
Yeah.
I do think that to this movie's credit, it is funnier to see it on screen without somebody explaining it to you on stage or the
Some
microphone,
hacky
like
comedian
to
that
see
you're
it
like,
and then to see like a giant truck full
"Don't
of
you hate
hay
it when your
almost
wife
fall
tells
over.
you what to do?
Yeah,
Tell her what to do."
it's better to see it represented
Across the
fully
ass.
without explanation. But then he does the thing where he explains it, and you're like, okay, somebody get Jeff Bridges off the stage. Take that microphone away from him.
Well, I think that you should just go
Do you want
faster
to?
on yellow.
Do you want to do your final thoughts, Jason?
Yeah. Good movie. I really like the road trip movie. No, that's not. I really like a road trip movie. And this is John Carpenter combining a few genres. Sci-fi, romantic comedy, road trip, and a little superhero. The film's pacing is pretty good, but I found it to be a little drawn out. Not overly, but I do like a more compact story, as you guys know about me. I found Event Horizon to be just perfect. Just the perfect length. So many things just... Anyway, spoilers. Because whether or not we do it for your month, I'm sure that movie's going to come up.
Yeah.
The parts with the couple I found interesting, and the parts with Mr. Sherman I found to be a lot of like villain man shouting at the like not quite superhero or not quite hero character.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I put it was I found it to be a lot of villain man shouting at science man who was for science basically. And
Yeah, they were there. They were just there to like be like, remember, there's a threat, guys.
they were the protagonist and antagonist having like a side plot to like this
They probably
romantic
could have left
comedy.
other stuff out, actually.
I would absolutely think that there was a lot more crossover, because we didn't talk about there's a phone call moment where Sherman, Mr. Sherman calls. They have a conversation on the phone.
Yeah,
and it's like, can't help you and I can't give you any information, but I'm trying to help you and here's some information. Karen Allen and Jeff Bridges had great chemistry. Jeff Bridges played the role perfectly, I thought, and it had excellent music because it was John Carpenter doing what he does. And that's pretty much all I had to say for the actual movie itself. So here we go. 3.5 out of 5. I give this movie 180 star coming down from space and knocking up an Earth woman, only to reveal a couple movies later he was a god planet and also his dad, and maybe he isn't. I give this movie a slowly trying to discover how to become human over 3 days while trying not to impregnate an Earth lady despite being the exact image and having the feelings of her dead husband.
Jesus Christ. That's a long one.
Well, it was 2. I wrote 2 because I had
right.
2. I had one that was like, "Fuck you, Steve. I'm reiterating my MCU theory."
That's fine.
And then
That's
one,
fine.
and then one that was like,
Listen, I don't
they were
hate that
horny
one
the whole time.
I don't mind. I don't mind. I just like to make it seem like I do because it's more fun.
It's fun. This movie fits perfectly as a prequel to that movie, and it's there was another moment. Oh yeah, that was in a different movie. The fucking from the new Thor when she folds the paper over and puts the pencil through. That's from Event Horizon.
It's in so many.
It's in a bunch of
that,
things?
that,
Okay.
that's
It was also
that's
in Stranger Things.
But people do
Right.
call it the Event Horizon thing because I think that movie. I don't know if it did it first, but it definitely
Like,
is one
popularized
of
it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's fun.
I think in Community, Danny Pudi at one saying he's like, at the risk of being reductive to Event Horizon.
You put dozen.
Yeah.
The just the one thing though about the MCU tie, I just think that there's I feel like James Gunn might love this movie, and
I think that James Gunn might love every John Carpenter.
well, he might
movie.
love John Carpenter, and he may have
Nice.
this. I think that movie being an homage to like 80s movies anyway, and sort of big budget like horror, body horror, action, sci-fi genre hybrids. I feel like Starman is like my unofficial prequel that explains a little bit more.
I think it's viable.
No, it's
more
fine. It
context.
works. Yeah, it definitely. It basically the flashback you see of Kurt Russell at the beginning of the second movie is like if this movie instead of Jeff Bridges being like a weirdo, he was just like a cool, like, all right, baby, let's go in a fucking Russian.
That's all I'm saying. It's
you want to suck on my orbs?
The movies don't have like this movie doesn't have a lot of depth to it to like be like, well, this happens and this happens and this is why it can't be in this. Like it's not like trying to like when I usually do like a theory corner, it's easy to be like, there's no fucking way these movies are related. But when you know that James Gunn is a fucking connoisseur of film, you know that he's familiar with this, and the first Guardians movie and the whole conceit of how Star-Lord gets to space, and then this whole second movie, like it feels a little bit coincidental. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're disagreeing with you. I think it is a fun theory for sure, and it's like if you watch this movie as a prequel to Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe you'll have more fun.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be more interesting to you.
That means that this is going to be the fifth Guardians movie coming out.
Okay.
Well, actually, the sixth if you count.
Yeah. No, you don't count the Christmas
Actually,
special.
the seventh if you count.
Shut up, Kaylin. Let's get your final thoughts.
Shut up.
Jason, did you have any others?
No, I'm good. I give this movie, Steve's wrong and Jason's right.
There was one other joke I wanted to call out before I do the final thoughts. When they're driving and they're talking, or he's talking about what he'll miss. It's like, his home's beautiful, but not like this or whatever. I'll miss this, I'll miss that. And it like looks down at her crotch and the other things.
Oh.
That gave me a nice little chuckle. My immature little juvenile brain.
Gave you a throbbing erection.
No.
Oh.
The scene in the bathroom when it happens at every place, that gave me one.
Let's not talk about our boners. Let's move on.
I thought it was interesting, just before we move on here, that they had every opportunity to make a dumb 80s gay joke, and they just went right around it in that bathroom.
What are you talking about? The bus stop?
Well, no, that's what I mean. Like, all he says is this happens every time or whatever, and it's not really...
I always get accosted in the restroom.
Yeah, it's like, that's not...
It's always one.
It's like a pseudo. Like...
And the sheriff kind of also gives like a look of disapproval when he kisses them goodbye.
Yeah, the kiss thing is like, the sheriff is like, that's some gay shit, and we're all like, all right.
Yeah, but everybody, even in today's climate,
it's funny though. It is funny because he's just looking at what would be a human custom, and it is a funny thing.
I laughed. I called it out loud. I said he's gonna kiss him, and then it happened, and I laughed.
I did the same thing. I was like, is he gonna kiss too? Oh yes, he did. So funny. Kaylin, you have your final thoughts ready to go?
Yeah. So overall, it was a nice little star-crossed lovers flick. I enjoy Carpenter's aesthetic to his movies. You mentioned earlier, like different crime scene, but his DNA's there. I applaud Jeff's efforts, but I did find how there wasn't progression in his movements to be like just basically a kind of annoying, distracting, and repetitive.
Right.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're allowed to have
fine.
an opinion. I think he just like decided to do a funny walk, and he's like, fuck it. He
took it in a direction. I had the same thing. I was like, he's gonna talk like this the whole time, and I do feel like throughout the movie it becomes more palatable. It becomes more like
talking does.
It doesn't become annoying, is what I think the best way you put it earlier is. Like, you think it's gonna become grating, but it really doesn't. You just kind of get to know. It's like that's just how he talks, and you know what? It's fine because you eventually learn to love him as a character.
They do tone it down. Like at first it's like, what, bro? And I think
at first his vocabulary is limited, right? He's learning more words and phrases.
I think that there's a chunk of this performance that they did ADR the voice to make it sound a little bit extra weird. Did you catch that?
Not that I can say I tracked, so I'm not saying you're wrong. I didn't really notice it.
That's all.
Anyway, Kaylin, what's your final thoughts? Are you done your final thoughts? You got more?
No, we're all just making like what are those pastas where the noodles crisscross with each other, or like knitting or something. Anyway, I'll say that it's a watch, and I give it a you are at your very best when things are worse.
That's
Cool.
another quote I wrote down. That's amazing.
Actually, at the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to mention that phrase, but I'm glad you brought it
I'm
back
glad
up.
you didn't.
I didn't have much. I didn't have much
Final.
to say about it. It's just it's a good line, you know. It's one of those good
I
lines.
had
You're
that
like,
in the
it's kind of a
chamber
weird,
for the
hopeful,
last
bleak outlook.
2
Yeah.
hours.
Like as soon as things are terrible, you guys are great. It's like okay, I guess
To
that's
add on
kinda
to
cool.
that,
Which is
though,
very true of the human species.
but to add on to that, we're letting it get real bad.
Yeah, it's
right
getting
now.
super bad.
It's
So maybe next year
like
will be great.
when do we start to turn it around a little bit? It's pretty much since
The
the
fall
Industrial
of, like,
Revolution. It's been
yeah.
like
It's slowly declining. Okay, so my final thoughts. Like I said, I had seen this movie once before and I didn't care for it. I suggested it because I thought it would be a good reprisal from the action that we're going to get into, and it's a little different from the Carpenter we've done in the past, right? The other ones we did were all gross or weird, and the ones we're going to do are all kind of like hard and gritty man movies. Man in quotation marks. And this one is a little softer, some humor, a lot of humor actually. But Carpenter, you would never accuse him of making a comedy, but like he's always got he's got humor in every single one of his movies, and he brings out performances so nicely in his movies. He knows how to give somebody the microphone, so to speak, and be like, "Tell us some jokes, Kurt Russell. Tell us some jokes, Jeff Bridges," and they do. On this viewing, I had more fun. I think I didn't really identify with any of the characters the first time I watched it. This time I can a little bit more. Going through life, it gives everybody a little bit of tragedy and trauma to deal with, and that's literally the opening of the movie is a traumatic and saddening experience. But faults, I guess I don't really have a ton. I guess you could consider it slow, but like, lots of fun stuff happens. So as soon as you start to get into that lull of like, all right, are they going to make it? Something fun will happen. He wins the jackpot in Las Vegas and buys a car. It's fun. I think a rating that I would give this movie is, because I liked it so much more and I was surprised at how much I liked it, I'm going to give this a movie that has 8 orbs of light to work with. But he only really needed 7 the whole time, and he gave us one at the end. And be like, "Here you go.
here you go.
Now we got a little orb we can put in our pocket and walk home with it."
Yeah, and your little baby can become a teacher later in life.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I guess we're. Fuck. I always forget the order of this. What do I do? I got a question for you guys.
No, our names and then the question.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Good movie. Starman was great. John Carpenter rules, and this month is going to be a great John Carpenter month.
John
So for
Carpenter Presents January again.
Thanks
For
for watching,
Jason and Kaylin.
Keldon.
I am Steven.
For Kaylin, for Steven, I'm Jason.
For Stephen and Jason, I'm Kellen.
Well, I got a question for you guys. Oh, also to answer your question, Keldon, there was never a sequel. There should have been. But I got a question for you. Hey, did you see this one?
Hey,
Hey,
did you see this
Did you
one?
see this one?
Hey,
Hey, did you see this one?
hey, did you see this one over here?
Stop.
Thank you.
This one? What about this one? What about this one? Hey, did you see this one? John Carpenter Presents January again.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun month. I'm excited. I haven't watched.
Can they still hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched Escape from New York in so many years, and I actually have only seen Escape from LA, I think, like twice in my life. So that should be interesting. I remember a lot of my friends when we were in high school thought LA was the good one, and then watching it as an adult, you're like, no, no. Why is he on a surfboard?
I think fart jokes are funny.